organised this conference today, and the key reason why we're here today is to look at how actors in local government like yourselves, councillors, people who work with local communities, especially Kashmiri communities within Britain, can strategize a way to kind of address the Kashmir issue. In particular, we've got a few things we'd like to address on the agenda. So I'm just going to start by going through them so that we can all kind of be a bit more aware of what we need to focus on today. So the first point we want to really look at is how can we engage local councils on various levels, for example, motions, and in many other ways, engagement programs with Kashmiri leaders, etc., to kind of effectively communicate the issue of Kashmir with local government and local communities. Furthermore, how can councillors and Labour Party, Conservative, all the political parties, how can all these members lobby their MPs? How can they talk to their MPs and ensure that the Kashmir issue stays relevant in British Parliament? The third thing we want to look at today as well is public mobilisation. So how can we run city and digital campaigns to mobilise the public on Kashmir? And number four, how do we make sure that the British media covers the Kashmir issue effectively, truthfully, and we can ensure that there's information out there about what's happening on the ground? Number five, how do we engage human rights organisations? And number six, how can we make the BDS movement against India successful? So these are kind of 6 points we've raised. The first being, I think, the most important: how can our councillors in the UK of Kashmiri origin really engage their local communities, whether they are Kashmiri, British, wherever they're from, on the issue? How can they ensure that local government understands the needs of their Kashmiri constituents? Just some brief introduction about myself. I am a Labour member, and I introduced the motion on Kashmir at Labour Party conference last year in 2019 in September. So that's how I've been involved in Kashmir nationally at Labour Party level, is through my motion on Kashmir last year. Today, Fahim Kiani has very successfully brought everyone together, and I'm just going to pass over to Fahim just so that he can give his comment.
Thank you very much, Uzma. First of all, I would like to thank His Excellency Sardar Masood Khan, President, Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Altaf Ahmed Bhatt, Senior Ghurid Kashmiri Leader, Bali Hanif Raja, President, Tehreek-e-Kashmir Scotland, Conference Moderator Uzma Rasool, and dear councillors from different councils of the United Kingdom for participating in this National Councillors Convention titled Brutal Lockdown and Demographic Changes in Kashmir. It's been a year since Modi changed the special status of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir and imposed a brutal lockdown on the people of occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The draconian year-long lockdown with the communication blackout in the state has led to the crippling of the economy and stripping of basic freedoms across occupied Kashmir. It is our duty to expose Indian brutalities and human rights abuses against the people of Kashmir. The purpose of the convention is to launch a comprehensive campaign on 5th August 2020. I hope that all councillors will focus on those points which have been mentioned by Uzma Rasool, conference moderator. And I hope that this convention will evolve into effective and efficient movement to end human rights violations and peace, and bring peace and stability to the people of occupied Kashmir who have been living under brutal occupation, subjugation, and oppression for last 70 years. Thank you very much. His Excellency will brief about domicile law, demographic changes in Kashmir. All these points will be briefed by him. And I hope that Councillor will focus all those points on their end as well. Thank you very much.
So what I would request is that if speakers could maybe aim for around, let's say 3 to 5 minutes, 5 minutes maximum. The President, of course, would take longer. If His Excellency could spend about 15 minutes so we can keep about in our time constraints. So around 15 minutes should be a good cutoff. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for joining us today. You've been working very hard on the cause. You've been proactive every day on this and engaging, especially with the British diaspora. So thank you very much for joining us. So yes, that's what I would request to speakers. I'd also request to check the chat over there on the side and make sure they kind of address those 6 points we've mentioned. So if you could stick to the agenda of those 6 questions, how can councillors address those 6 questions to ensure that we get a productive outcome today? So I would like to pass it on to His Excellency Sardar Masood Khan, President of Azad Jammu and Kashmir now. If you, yeah, there you go.
Okay. All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mr. Fahim Kiani, who is the chairman of Tehreek-e-Kashmir, United Kingdom, Mr. Altaf Ahmed Bhat, Mr. Hanif Raja, and Ms. Uzma Rasool, and all the councillors who are present here today. So, good evening from here, and it must be good afternoon in the United Kingdom. So, it's a pleasure to talk to you. First, I want to really appreciate the efforts Mr. Fahim Kiani has been making, because once again, we have this webinar and it has a specific theme, which is brutal lockdown and demographic changes in Kashmir. So I'm really pleased that we are not talking about generalities, but we're talking about a specific issue which is facing us today. In fact, everybody is familiar with the history of Jammu and Kashmir. The people of Jammu and Kashmir have been striving for the realization of their right to self-determination or liberty or freedom for the past 200 years. But their plight became even more compounded and complex after the Indian occupation of the territory on October the 27th, 1947. And since then, day after day, year after year, decade after decade, Kashmiris have been killed, massacred, and according to the latest statistics, some 23 massacres have already taken place. And I can also tell you that in 1947, there was a genocide, there was a proper genocide or a Holocaust that took place in Jammu. Some 237,000 Kashmiris were killed. At that time, Jammu used to be a Muslim majority area. And because of this genocide, because of this Holocaust, because I call it Holocaust because these 237,000 Muslims were killed in 1 month, in the month of November 1947. Because of that genocide, Jammu was reduced, Jammu was changed or transformed into a Hindu majority area. And right now, as I speak to you, the Indian government, led by Bharatiya Janata Party and supported by Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, they are trying to change or transform the Valley of Kashmir into a Hindu majority state by turning Muslim majority into a minority. That is the sole purpose of the lockdown that was imposed on Kashmiris last year. Well, India has committed many crimes since August the 5th last year. This doesn't mean that they were not committing crimes against humanity or genocide or ethnic cleansing from 1947 to 2019. No, every year has been a year of massacres and killings and rapes for Kashmiris. But last year, the Indian government decided to invade the territory once again. They invaded the territory, they reoccupied it, they beefed up the presence of the occupation forces. Before the attack or before the invasion, the number of Indian occupation troops in the territory was 700,000. It was increased to 900,000 troops. And these 900,000 troops invaded the territory and laid siege to the occupied territory of Jammu and Kashmir. I mean, you know that They made Kashmiris completely incommunicado. There was this information blackout, communication blockade. They were cut off from the rest of the world. That lockdown or multiple lockdowns that were imposed on Kashmir continue in one form or the other up to this day. And the situation since August the 5th, 2019 has deteriorated. In the immediate aftermath of the steps that were taken by India on August the 5th, there was an outrage, there was an angry reaction from the world community. It was not just the people of Pakistan or the people of Azad Kashmir or our diaspora community all around the world that was outraged. The reaction came from the international community. And I'm basically talking about international civil society. I'm talking about the international media, television networks, think tanks, lawyers communities, lawmakers, as a matter of fact, parliaments, and the United Kingdom Parliament led that wave of public opinion against India because they started questioning India's motives in reoccupying the territory, brutalizing its people. And because this was a new, in our century, this was a new instance of colonization of our territory and brutalization of its people, because the world thought that the decolonization process had been completed in the last century. And in the 21st century, there was no possibility of colonization of a whole population, of a whole territory with impunity. And this is what India did. So there was this reaction, but this reaction, and it was very strong reaction. This lasted for only 3 months, to be precise, August, September, and October. And then the world's attention was diverted to other issues. In the United Kingdom, it was Brexit. In the United States, it was impeachment proceedings against the President of the United States. And then we were all embroiled in the COVID-19 pandemic. We were trying to beat back this deadly virus. So this is what happened as far as attention to Kashmir was concerned. Now, the two other steps that India took are also very significant, or sets of steps that India took. Last year on October the 31st and November the 1st, India divided the occupied territory into two parts and called them union territories, the Union Territory of Ladakh and the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, and made them subservient to Delhi, to the capital of the Indian Union or the Indian Federation, which meant that without the consent of the people, the writ of the central government had been extended to the occupied territory, which meant that people of Kashmir had been excluded from decision-making processes altogether. As you would recall, that before August the 5th, of course, there was some semblance of autonomy for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. You had a separate flag, a separate constitution, and an assembly. But all these trappings were dissolved or taken away from the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And they were turned into slaves in this modern era. And they were to be governed by their colonial master sitting in Delhi. So this is so they divided this occupied territory into two parts. Ladakh was designated as a union territory, and it was announced that it will have no assembly in the future. Whereas Jammu and Kashmir would have an assembly. That assembly has not been elected yet, but they are resorting to gerrymandering or fresh delimitation of constituencies in order to reduce the Muslim representation in this so-called assembly that would be created, that would be artificially crafted. So they also annexed the territory, the disputed territory of Jammu and Kashmir, the occupied part, to the Indian Union. And they were so brazen that they went ahead and in their maps showed Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Kashmir as parts of the Indian Federation. Outrageous. But this is what India did, and they revised their maps and issued these fake maps. You know, I'm giving you these granular details in order to familiarize you with what is happening on the ground. The third set of steps that they were taken early this year were equally outrageous. They are also going to have far-reaching impact on the landscape of the occupied territory. April the 2nd this year, India introduced new domicile laws or new domicile rules. These rules, these illegal rules, as far as the international law is concerned, and when I'm talking about international law, I'm talking about international humanitarian law, and I'm invoking the 4th Geneva Convention, the ICC Statute, Additional Protocol 1, UN Security Council resolutions, UN Security Council resolutions on Kashmir. So violating all these laws and conventions and treaties, the bulk of the body of international law, India has introduced these new domicile rules. What do these new domicile rules do? In fact, they said that any Hindus, and basically Hindu civil servants or armed personnel or people serving in statutory and non-statutory bodies who have served in Kashmir for 10 years or 10 to 15 years, they will be entitled to domicile certification or the citizenship of the state. And they could be from any part of India. And last year, this 2 articles were rescinded. One was, of course, Article 370, which gave limited autonomy to the occupied part. And the second was Article 35A. And the, Article 35A recognized Kashmiris' inherent rights to permanent residence, to acquisition of property, to privileges regarding their jobs and livelihoods and education. All were taken away when Article 35 was repealed. But these new domicile rules have been introduced as a substitute to Article 35A to enable Hindus from all over India to settle in Kashmir. I gave you these categories of the ex-army personnel or civil servants who served in Kashmir. Their families, their children, for instance, can get citizenship, but those living, Kashmiris' descendants who are part of the diaspora community, they can't apply for domicile certification. Those living in the United Kingdom, those boys and girls can't apply, but boys and girls or these people who have served in Kashmir, but they have never been to Kashmir, they qualify for this domicile certification. They add to the list the migrant workers from all over India, also West Pakistan, the so-called West Pakistan refugees. Now, this is an invasion of the entire Hindu population into the territory. There was this military invasion, and this is demographic invasion of the territory. And according to some reports which have been made public intentionally or leaked, the authors of these illegal rules plan to import 2 million people, 2 million Hindus into the territory to reconfigure the population of the territory. And this would result directly into what you call disenfranchisement of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and dispossession, and their displacement, ultimately their displacement. And this is akin to what happened in Nazi Germany last century. And if you want to read these new domicile rules, please also read, along with these rules, Nuremberg laws. There's an eerie similarity between the two, because the purpose here is to rob Kashmiris of their nationality, of their permanent residence, of their identity, and ultimately to displace them. And they have also, I mean, these occupiers in the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir have established what they call de-radicalization camps, but they are concentration camps modeled on the concentration camps of the Nazi Germany. Two other things need to be mentioned in this context. One is, of course, this curbs on reporting or dissemination of information in one form or the other, these media restrictions, anything that would be said against these laws or against the draconian measures that India has imposed on the Kashmiris would be considered treasonable, a treasonable act, or kind of, in their own language, they say that anybody disseminating such information would be a deshdrohi or a traitor. So they have gagged the entire Kashmiri population in the media, and they're imposing their writ and will on the Kashmiri people. Recently, they have also amended their Jammu and Kashmir Development Act, which authorizes the armed forces, the occupation forces, to designate any area as strategic. And there they can start construction of settlements. And they have made plans to settle Hindus there. They're trying to create these colonies and settlements, and later on they will legitimize them. And this is modeled on the illegal settlements in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. So cumulatively, Kashmiris have been going through hell. That's not all. There are two other things in this context that I want to highlight. One is that some 13,000 boys and children were taken into custody last year, and they remain incarcerated up to this day. They are being indoctrinated and tortured. They are indoctrinated against freedom and liberty, and tortured to change their minds. This group, this 13,000 group of boys and children, includes children who are as young as 10, 11, and 12. Now, this must be kept in mind. And then our entire political leadership, the Hurriyat leadership, is in Indian custody, and they are in detention centers, or the most notorious prison houses. This freedom fighter, Asya Indrabi, she was moved to the punishment ward in Tihar jail. Tihar jail is the most notorious jail in India, where political activists are kept for persecution and punishment. So, and Yasin Malik and Shabir Ahmad Shah, they are in Tihar jail, and Musarat Alam Bhat is under detention, and Sayyid Gilani and Mir Wais Umar Farooq, they are confined to their houses. So another aspect is that throughout this past year, Indians have targeted young men, and they've been killing them in cordon and search operations and cordon and destroy operations. These operations basically are meant to eliminate youth and to crush dissent in regard to the future of Kashmir. And they've been very brutal in their methods. The number of these young boys who've been martyred is increasing every day. Let me talk about the United Kingdom. We are grateful to the United Kingdom that Last year, it spoke in a robust voice against the atrocities in the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. It led public opinion. I am thankful, and personally I'm thankful to the British parliamentarians, the diaspora community leaders for changing this protest against India into an international movement. And so we're grateful to both the lawmakers and the diaspora community and the United Kingdom's media. Councillors were active at the grassroots level. And in fact, they were responsible for these huge demonstrations and rallies and also seminars that were held. But demonstrations and rallies are very important because they demonstrate the collective will of the citizens. And you used all means of communication to call out India for the crimes against humanity it was committing. What I want to say is that the United Kingdom is a member of the United Nations Security Council. It's a permanent member of the Security Council. And therefore, it is responsible for the maintenance of international peace and security and promotion and protection of universal human rights. Human rights are not specific to the Western Hemisphere or to the Western countries. Human rights are universal. I mean, if there's violation of human rights in the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, that is the business of the entire international community, and the United Kingdom happens to be one of the strongest advocates and custodians of human rights standards. Now, therefore, I think that it is the responsibility of the United Kingdom to brief the Security Council about the kind of irredentism that we see in the occupied territory, the brutalities every day, the killings, the maimings, the blindings, the forced disappearances, and massive human rights violations. So it is United Kingdom's responsibility, and I think that United Kingdom should engage the United Nations Security Council, Human Rights Council, the General Assembly, and other forums. But I'm pinning my hopes on the British civil society. Let me tell you that what Kashmir is going through is no less serious than what the people of South Africa went through, or what the people of Vietnam went through during the war, or what the Balkans faced in the 1990s. So I would appeal to you to mobilize public opinion. I can tell you that last century in Nazi Germany, it was a crime to be a Jew. And I mean, the diktat was at that time of the Nazi leaders that Jews had to be eliminated. I'm telling you, for Muslims of Kashmir, it is as stark. Their identity is as vulnerable as of the Jews in the last century in Germany. And so the situation is as stark as it was in other instances of the depredations of fascism in Europe and other parts of the world. So it is a crime to be a Muslim in Kashmir. It is a crime to be a Muslim in the whole of India. But Muslims have been designated for elimination and extermination. Please help us stop this massacre and extermination of Muslims on such a vast scale. Let me tell you that this Genocide Watch, this US-based non-governmental organization, it has warned that Kashmir is on a very advanced stage of genocide. I mean, they have made the Hindu extremists, the Hindutva doctrinaires, or the Hindutva advocates, they made all the preparations for extermination of Muslims. And they are already in a state of these occupiers, these perpetrators of these crimes, heinous crimes, they are in a state of denial. A day would come, let me predict, when 10,000 or 20,000 Kashmiri Muslims would be killed in a day. You have to stem that, you have to avert that, and that's why we need the support of the international community. Also, India's actions in Kashmir can trigger a war between India and Pakistan with all sorts of dire and dangerous consequences. We have to avert a war so that a conventional war or an asymmetric war or some sort of clash at the conventional level doesn't escalate to the nuclear level, which would spell disaster, not only for India and Pakistan or South Asia, but for the entire world. So let me also endorse the agenda which has been put on the table by Uzma Rasool and by Fahim Kiani, which is that while talking to the councillors, I think that your outreach in your own political parties, and particularly in your own councils, can make a difference. You have shown that kind of determination in the past. The time is of the essence. Now that we are completing 1 year of Kashmiri's enslavement and captivity, I think it's time to work at the grassroots level in the councils to mobilize public opinion against these crimes against humanity in the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir and ongoing genocide there. And I do not want to repeat what Uzma Rasool read out, but motions, I can say that motions in the political parties or in the councils would be very helpful. Statements, collective statements and video messages from the MPs would be very helpful. In fact, I would urge all of you to write to the Foreign Secretary and to write to the Prime Minister, because they're the ones who are silent. They're the ones who are prevaricating. They're the ones who do not call a spade a spade. They usually say that, yes, we are concerned about a grave human rights situation in the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, but they don't add that they have censured India for that, or then they wind up their response in the House of Commons or in the House of Lords by saying that it's a bilateral issue which has to be sorted out by Islamabad and Delhi. But there's no engagement between Islamabad and Delhi. There's no bilateral process. No diplomacy is taking place. Only the killing of Kashmiris is taking place. That's a stark reality. So what I want to say here is that your collective letters to the media, to the leaders of the political parties, the 4 major political parties, the Conservatives, the Labour, the SNP and Lib Dems, and also your letters to the Foreign Secretary and the Prime Minister would help, because this is important that we take the entire movement for the freedom and liberty and self-determination of Kashmir to a critical point where we start seeing the results. 2 other points that I want to leave on the table. I mean, one has already been mentioned, that a kind of embryonic BDS, the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement has started against India, because people are questioning these big firms and corporate entities and even the governments as to why they are underwriting India's crimes against humanity in Kashmir and other parts of India, particularly in Kashmir. So, but this BDS hasn't taken a formal shape. So you may cogitate and reflect as to how robust or strong BDS can be started against India. why should it be empowered by the world community to commit these egregious crimes against unarmed, non-combatant civilians in the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir? And the second is, I say it with full authority, that the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh is the biggest terrorist organization in the world. I mean, usually the world says that some of the organizations in Pakistan and some of the organizations in the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, that they are terrorists, because this is India's narrative. They are not terrorists. I mean, those young boys, 250 or 300 boys who are resisting Indian occupation, they're dubbed as terrorists. But the crimes which are being committed by the RSS, and they have been documented by Indian NGOs, and they have been highlighted by Indian political parties. And they have an external wing which is called Hindu Swayamsevak Sangh. So I say, why shouldn't this organization, which has 6 million members, be designated as a terrorist organization? I'll stop here, and I'm keen to listen to your views. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. You gave a very detailed sort of conclusion of things. You addressed several sort of things going on. For example, the realities on the ground. You've addressed what's happening on the line of control, of aggression, and all the other risks that come with it. So thank you very much for that very detailed brief for us. Now I'd like to go over to Altaf Ahmed Butt, because he is going to speak to us as well. I request that he could do like maybe 1 minute of his speech in Kashmiri, if possible, just so that we can kind of fit the theme of this session.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, I would like to appreciate Mr. Fahim Kiani and his all team. He is always, especially after the abrogation of Article 370, he raised the voice of voiceless people. Today, I am very happy. For the first time, I have been asked, I have been intimated that I have to talk in Kashmiri language, which is mostly used in Indian occupied Kashmir and some parts of Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Janab Sadr Riyasat Jammu and Kashmir, Manyo, Bayo, Benyo, Assalamu alaikum. Bushus az seta khosh ki toy sari yimzan sani dilch awaz benit Maqbuza Kashmir can Timan Marjan, Benyan, Masum, Bachan, Titiman Bazargan, Yaman Pet Musalsal Petmio, Dusato Video Pet, Bharati, Hukumran, Chahe Su Modi Cho, Chahe Su Bajpai Cho, Timo Zulmuk Intiha Kor, or Tamish Awaz, Watnavnish Kushish Karvutai, Duniakan, Ivanan Mans, Hastorpe, Bartani Kis Ivanas Mans, Europikis Ivanas Mans, Amerikis Ivanas Mans. तो बुशस तमिल लिहाज दिलचे वच वंज तोहि पन्ने तरफ तिमन मजलूम कशरन हिंद तरफ तिमन कशरन तहरीक हुरियत पसंद लीडरन हिंद तरफ तो सलाम अकीदत पेश करान. I am very grateful today here in front of Mr. President Masood Khan, who is always the real ambassador of Indian occupied Kashmir, the people who have been besieged by the 1 million fascist forces of Modi regime. आज मैं यहाँ पे फहीम कियानी साहब को ट्रिब्यूट करना चाहूँगा, उस्मा रसूल और हनीफ साहब जो स्कॉटलैंड से हैं और बाकी जितने भी आप काउंसलर हैं. मैं समझता हूँ कि बेसिकली यू हैव वर्क, आपने ग्रास रूट लेवल पे जो काम किया है, दैट इज़ वाई कि आपके जो MPs है, आपके जो वहाँ पे हुक्मरान है, वो कश्मीर के हक में बात करने पे मजबूर हो गए. गो कि वो इस अनफिनिश्ड एजेंडा का हिस्सा है, लेकिन उनकी याद दहानी के लिए जो आपने काम किया है ये तारीख में सुनहरी हरूफ से रकम किया जाएगा, और ख़ास तौर पे तहरीक-ए-कश्मीर बरतानिया का जो उसमें रोल है वो सुनहरी हरूफ से लिखा जाएगा। और प्रेसिडेंट साहब के लिए मैं यहाँ पे, ये कोई तारीफ नहीं है, आज़ाद कश्मीर में दर्जनों सियासी कायदीन है, बट दे आर मिसिंग आफ्टर द एब्रोगेशन ऑफ आर्टिकल 370 एंड 35A। खास तौर पे इस कोविड में मैं ये बवांग दोहला कहना चाहूँगा, मैं समझता हूँ कि हियर इस कन्वेंशन में, इस वक्त इस वेबिनार में, देयर आर ओनली द सन्स ऑफ सॉइल एंड डॉटर्स ऑफ सॉइल। यहाँ मैं तनकीद भी करूँगा, कोविड-19 की बात करूँगा। मैंने हुकूमत पाकिस्तान से भी तनकीद की है, जहाँ हुकूमत पाकिस्तान ने $8 अरब का ऐलान किया, रिलीफ पैकेज का ऐलान किया, वहाँ पे अगर उनका दावा सही है, मकबूजा कश्मीर पाकिस्तान का हिस्सा है। मैंने इमरान खान साहब से मुतालबा किया, उनको $2 अरब का ऐलान मकबूजा कश्मीर में उन जुल्म सहने वाले लोगों के लिए करना चाहिए था, उन लोगों के लिए करना चाहिए था जो सिर्फ तहरीक आज़ादी कश्मीर के लिए अपना गरम गरम लहू पेश नहीं कर रहे हैं, बल्कि वो तहरीक तकमील पाकिस्तान के लिए वहाँ पे ये जुल्म सह रहे हैं। तो हुक्मरानों को, पाकिस्तानी हुक्मरानों को, मुझे मालूम है ये पैसा वहाँ पे पहुँचाना मुश्किल था, लेकिन यूनाइटेड नेशन के दरवाजे पे, यूनाइटेड नेशन के सेक्रेटरी जनरल के टेबल पे उनको छोड़ के आ जाते कि ये तुम्हारा काम बनता है, तुम दुनिया के मामे बने हुए हो, तुम दुनिया को इंसाफ देना चाहते हो, तुमने दुनिया में लोगों को इंसाफ दिया है, व्हाई नॉट फॉर कश्मीरियंस। तो मुझे यकीन है इससे तहरीक में एक और मोमेंटम बन जाता। दुनिया कहती ठीक है, पाकिस्तान को अगर वहां जाने की इजाजत नहीं है, अगर किसी जमात को जाने की इजाजत नहीं है, व्हाई नॉट यूनाइटेड नेशन, व्हाई नॉट द ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हु आर वर्किंग फॉर रिलीफ, हु आर वर्किंग फॉर ह्यूमैनिटी। आखिर क्या वजह है कि उनको, उन मासूम बच्चों के लिए, उन माओं बहनों, उनका कसूर क्या है? अगर उनका कसूर यही है कि वो मुसलमान हैं, इसलिए उनकी आवाज़ नहीं सुनी जाती है, इसीलिए हिंदू और हिंदुता माइंडसेट, हमारा हिंदुस्तानियों से कोई लड़ाई नहीं है, लेकिन जो हिंदू माइंडसेट इन द लीडरशिप ऑफ नरेंद्र मोदी एंड हिज कोलीग्स अमित शाह एंड अजीत डोवल, हम आखिर क्या वजह है कि इतना बड़ा जुल्म होने के बावजूद दुनिया खामोश है? उस्मा रसूल, आपने, वी कैन सी, वी हैव सीन, हमने स्टेटमेंट्स देखे हैं, वी हैव सीन द रिपोर्ट्स ऑफ कमिटीज ऑफ यूनाइटेड नेशन, ह्यूमन राइट्स काउंसिल एंड यूके पार्लियामेंट, यूरोपियन पार्लियामेंट, बट दिस इज टाइम हम अमली इक़दाम देखना चाहते हैं उस जुल्म को रोकने के लिए, उस तशद्दुद को रोकने के लिए, उस डेमोग्राफी को चेंज करने के लिए। हजारों साल की जो हमारी तारीख है, हमारा एक स्टेटहुड है, हमारी एक शनाख्त है, जिस तरह सदरी रियासत ने यहाँ पे बात की है, इट कैन मूव इन फॉरमो सो वहां पार करना 20,000 वो सास डोमिसाइल गई तक इशू 3 लाख 3 लाख अंडर प्रोसेस, 3 लाख डोमिसाइल अंडर प्रोसेस है। Already there are 1 million Indian troops already in Srinagar with their family members. सदर साहब, मैं आपकी आज इंफॉर्मेशन में इजाफा करना चाहूँगा, उस 1 मिलियन आर्मी की जो फैमिलीज वहाँ पे है वो 5 लाख है। 10 लाख फौजियों में से 1 लाख फौजी अफसर होता है, और हर फौजी अफसर को उन्होंने छावनियों के अंदर घर बना के दिए हैं। इट मीन्स वहाँ पे ऑलरेडी 15 लाख फौजी छावनियों के अंदर मौजूद है। 2 लाख घर वहां पे तामीर किए जाते हैं, एक घर में मिनिमम 10 लोग रहते हैं। इट मींस 20 लाख लोगों को उन घरों में आबाद किया जाएगा। ये 35 लाख लोगों की आबादी बनती है, और आप अंदाजा करें 5 साल के अंदर हमारी वहां तादाद 80 लाख है, 80 लाख से कई गुना ज्यादा हो जाएगी। ये इसराइल टाइप, ये प्रोपेगेंडा नहीं है, ये थ्योरेटिकली आप इसकी कैलकुलेशन करें प्रेसिडेंट साहब, ये 4-5 साल के बाद आप खुद कहेंगे वहां पर रायशुमारी ना हो, क्योंकि रायशुमारी उनके हक में होगी। अगर हमने वाकई उन यूनाइटेड नेशन रेजोल्यूशन को अमलाना है, उनको इन दिनों में अपलाएं। ये ना हो कि कल वो कहें और हम कहें कि हम इसके लिए तैयार नहीं हैं। वहां पे 2 लाख घर बनना कोई आसान बात नहीं है। 3 जगहों पे नॉर्थ, साउथ और सेंटर में 3 बड़ी फौजी छावनियों के लिए जमीन अलॉट की गई है। मैं कहता हूं, मैं बार बार कहता हूं, मैंने हाउस ऑफ कॉमन में ये बात की है, सदर रियासत आप हमारे तर्जुमान हैं, आप सिर्फ आजाद कश्मीर तर्जुमान के तर्जुमान वनकस ये तिमन लुकन हिंद यम आजादी हज तहरीक चलावान जो तहरीक आजादी कश्मीर को वहां पे तकमील तक पहुंचाना चाहते हैं, आप उनके भी नुमाइंदे हैं। आज हुक्मरानों को बता दे, प्लीज उनको बता दे, कश्मीरियों ने जो कुछ करना था अपनी आज़ादी के लिए, हिंदुस्तान से आज़ादी के लिए और तकमीली पाकिस्तान के लिए, हम वो सब कुछ कर चुके हैं। हमारी सिर्फ हम जवान नहीं, वहाँ की माएँ, बच्चे, बुजुर्ग, बूढ़े, हर शख्स ने वहाँ पे खाल तक उतरवाई है, इज्जत तक अपनी मजरू की है, अपने घरों को तबाह किया है। आप अभी सदर साहब देखें, ये जो उन्होंने सिलसिला किया इस साल में, इस कोविड-19 के अंदर, पूरी दुनिया रो रही है कोविड-19 की वजह से, और वो जालिम नरेंद्र मोदी, अजीत डोवाल और अमित शाह और उसका प्रेजेंट आर्मी चीफ वहां पे घरों को डायनामेट करके तहलील कर रहा है। घर बनाने के बजाय वहां पे घरों को तहलील किया जाता है। तो इसलिए मेरी आपसे गुजारिश है कि ये जो नया सिलसिला है, ये सिलसिला ऐसा हो गया, खुदा ना खास्ता ये ना हो कि हम आज़ादी की बात ही भूल जाएं, हम रेफरेंडम की बात ही भूल जाएं, हम जो है प्लेबिसाइड की बात भूल जाएं। इसलिए जो आपने एक मोमेंटम बनाया है 5 अगस्त के बाद से, फहीम कियानी साहब, चाहे वो आपकी सूरत में हो, वो लॉर्ड नज़ीर की सूरत में हो, वो राजा नजाबत साहब की सूरत में हो, प्रोफेसर शाह साहब की सूरत में हो, डॉक्टर भाई साहब की सूरत में हो, अली सईद रजा साहब की सूरत में हो, उज़मा रसूल जो हमारी यंग लीडर वहाँ पे बहन मौजूद है, इस मोमेंटम को बढ़ाएं। जैसे प्रेसिडेंट साहब ने आपको कहा, मैं आपको हदीये सलाम अर्ज करना चाहूँगा। हम पाकिस्तान में कोविड-19 की वजह से कोई बड़ा जलसा नहीं कर सके, लेकिन आपने बुरहान वानी को याद करने के लिए वहाँ की सड़कों पे प्रेजेंस दी है। आपने हिंदुस्तान के हुक्मरानों को ये बताने में आप कामयाब हो गए कि हम जिंदा हैं, हम किसी चीज़ से डरते नहीं हैं। मैं आज आपका ज़्यादा टाइम नहीं लूँगा, लेकिन ये मैं आपको बताना चाहूँगा, 1 साल गुजर गया, अब 5 अगस्त आने वाला है, जितना बड़ा रिस्पांस आपने पैदा किया पूरी दुनिया में, लेकिन अभी किसी बड़ी बिग पावर की तरफ से, P5 की तरफ से, खासतौर पे यूनाइटेड नेशन की तरफ से कोई अमली कदम नहीं उठा कि वो हिंदुस्तान को कहें कि कश्मीरियों को उनका बुनियादी हक की खुद इरादियत, उनको प्लेबिसाइड का मौका दे, उनको रेफरेंडम का मौका दे। और ना ही इस दौरान उन्होंने कोई कोशिश की कि जो इकोनॉमिक ब्रेकडाउन हुआ, President Saab, I am always talking that this was not a lockdown, this was not a communication breakdown, this was a economic breakdown. As per the reports of Kashmir Traders and Manufacturers Federation, my younger brother is the Secretary General of that organization in Jammu and Kashmir, state level के वो organization है। उन्होंने एक report produce किया, मैं President साहब को कल भेजूंगा, कल मैं भेज दूंगा, और उसमें 35,000 करोड़ की उन्होंने रिपोर्ट दी है। 35,000 करोड़ का नुकसान हुआ है पिछले 1 साल में, आप अंदाजा कर ले, ये कोई छोटी बात नहीं है। 35,000, ये 3.5 खरब रुपया बनते हैं इंडियन करेंसी में, पाकिस्तान की करेंसी में 10 खरब रुपया बनते हैं। आप बताएं खुदारा, इतना जुल्म सहने के बावजूद अगर वो वहाँ पे तहरीक आज़ादी कश्मीर की बात करते हैं तो हमारी क्या जिम्मेदारी बनती है। लीडरशिप का भी प्रेसिडेंट साहब ने बात की है, इससे बढ़ के और वो क्या कुर्बानी दे। आसिया इंद्राबी उसके हस्बैंड के साथ वो डेथ सेल में है, शबीर अहमद शाह हो, यासिन मलिक हो, गिलानी साहब हो, सहराही साहब हो, डॉक्टर फयाज साहब हो, मेरे बड़े भाई जफर अकबर भट्ट हो, कुछ को घरों में पाबंद किया है। और वो कोशिश, मैं आपको प्रेसिडेंट साहब ये बताना चाहता हूँ, बिल्कुल वेरी फ्रैंकली आपको बताना चाहूँगा, एक लिहाज से वो हमारी लीडरशिप की आवाज़ को दबाने में कामयाब हो चुके हैं। वो कि वहाँ पे भी एक नई लीडरशिप सामने आ रही है, यूथ वहाँ पे सामने आ रहे हैं। कि बावजूद इसके जो प्रेसिडेंट साहब ने बात की है, पहली दफ़ा हिंदुस्तान के हुक्मरानों ने यूथ, जो हमारे पढ़े लिखे प्रोफेसर, डॉक्टर्स एंड PhD डॉक्टर्स, उनको उन्होंने किल किया। लेकिन हिंदुस्तान ये देख चुका है, वो वॉल रीडिंग देख चुके हैं, नविश्ते दीवार देख चुके हैं, वहाँ का न बच्चा, न बूढ़ा, न औरत, न माँ, न बहन, न बच्ची उनके सामने सरेंडर करने के लिए तैयार नहीं है। वो कहते हैं कि हिंदुस्तान इज नॉट आवर चॉइस, अगर हमारी चॉइस है तो उनकी नजरें पाकिस्तान पे है। तो पाकिस्तानी अवाम और पाकिस्तानी हुक्मरानों से मैं आज प्रेसिडेंट साहब की वसादत से ये पैगाम देना चाहूँगा, आप सबकी तरफ से पैगाम देना चाहूँगा कि अब उनका प्रैक्टिकल रोल बनता है फौज को फौज निकाल सकती है, जारियत का जवाब जारियत से दिया जाता है। तो इसी के साथ मैं इजाजत चाहूंगा, अगर आखिर पर कोई बात हुई तो इंशाल्लाह मैं आपसे फिर बात करूंगा। अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
Thank you very much, Abdul, for that very passionate speech. And I hope everyone understood that. And now I'd like to bring on the councillors. So the key kind of agenda we have today are the 6 points we raised. They're also available in the chat over there. So if I could get councillors to stick to those 6 points we've raised, how can councillors address a strategy regarding Kashmir at local government level, and how can we also take it to national level? So the first person I'm going to bring on is, let's see here, we've got Councillor Aslam Khan from Luton. So can we have Councillor Aslam from Luton?
Thank you very much, Osman. President Saab, fellow councillors, Assalamu alaikum. It's a pleasure to be in your company once again, and I would like to congratulate Fahim Kiani Saab for embracing the technology and connecting us all in these unusual times far and wide. Just wanted to sort of talk on a couple of points. One, the feedback on current strategy and how we perceive it to be working or not working. Secondly, the role of our councillors and the importance of 5th of August and what we can all do to play our part. President Saab, it's always refreshing, and I think for the first time since I have been active in politics and as well as campaigning for Kashmir, we've seen someone who's leading on behalf of Kashmiris, a Kashmiri who's becoming a voice which helps us to project a view that is not a third party, it's actually the Kashmiris who are representing themselves. And someone who's articulate enough, who can relate to people, who can engage with people and convince them of our point of view. So from what I see and what I gather in the meetings that you've had with the MPs and also the overseas diaspora, certainly that is coming across really well and strong. The biggest success that I see from a strategy point of view is branding India as an extremist Hindutva ideology, which has no respect for international law, has no respect for human rights, and it's a bully who has an expansion agenda. That certainly is being received well by the politicians. And our focus on human rights and the brutality which is taking place in Kashmir, that is being recognized. So I think finally we are, as a country, our stance and our strategy is landing well. Now, as far as the councillors are concerned, you're absolutely right. The councillors are very much fabric of the politics who do have reach and can shape opinion, both within the public as well as put the pressure onto our member of parliament, and they do have a reach through that conduit. If you could remember the event that we had at Luton Borough Council where you were present, and I think the visuals that we presented, which were very strong, like we all know that a painting can sort of paint a thousand words, basically. So at one time we had difficulty in getting the materials, but now that is not an issue because we get a lot of materials, a lot of visuals and video clips, which can be utilized by our councillors, who can quite frankly communicate with the voluntary organizations, with our member public, not just within Kashmiri community, but wider community. That will help to shape opinion and make people realize the kind of atrocities which are happening in Kashmir. Within the party, I mean, for Labour Party, we do have policy groups. This is something that our councillors can request, that Kashmir is an agenda item which gets discussed and talked about at policy level, and how could the party at local level take a stance, and that will help to perhaps present motions. We've done that, and most of the councillors are doing that, and we need to continue doing that. Thirdly, the MPs, how do we encourage them to attend meetings like this, where they get first-hand information? And I know Sarah Owen, for our constituent, has been in meetings where you have briefed people just like we have. How do we get each and every one of the councillors across the country by inviting the MPs? And you're quite right, it's not acceptable anymore just to say, yeah, we do support, the campaign and we are against human rights. What practical steps have they taken? How many meetings have they attended, and how many sessions they've attended in Parliament, which was specific, Kashmir specific, and what actions have they got, and what they are attending to do as our MP? And lastly, 5th of August is an anniversary of the biggest criminal act by any nation in the history of this world. We need to make sure that this gets communicated wide as possible, and people get to know what is happening and the significance of 5th of August, what that means for Kashmiris who are locked up, have no medicines, being killed every day, and being brutalized. And now the China element, you talk about war, it's not just 2 nations anymore, there's 3 nations, and the risk of nuclear war is much, much higher. So I know that I've taken a bit of time. I like to encourage all my colleagues to talk about practical things. These are some of the things that which I've suggested and given feedback. I'm sure some of the other colleagues have other things to share. So President, again, thank you very much for enlightening us, educating us, and thank you, Fahim, for giving us the opportunity to be in this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Thank you very much for that input. One thing I would request to everyone is, because of the time constraints, if we can aim for about 2 minutes, maximum if required 3, just so we can get everyone in, because everyone's made the effort to attend today. Councillor Aslam Khan has given some great recommendations and he's given us a good summary. So could we all also do the same, keep it very sticking to the agenda like he did, and focusing on kind of producing a strategy forward. So now the next person we're going to have on is Councillor Liaquat Ali, MBE from Waltham Forest, if he could come on.
Your Excellency, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Your Excellency, distinguished guests, good afternoon to all of you. And first of all, really, I want to thank Fahim Kiani, Saab, and Uzma for organizing this National Councillors Convention. And obviously, Your Excellency, you laid out all of those points, and certainly, I mean, on 5th of August 2019, the Indian government unconstitutionally and unlawfully revoked the Articles 370, 35A, and it's really massive. It's the lockdown is affecting over 8 million people living in Kashmir, and it's certainly created a human rights crisis of really at a large scale. The consequences of all of these abrogations, 370, 35, they are horrendous, and the lockdown at the moment, and certainly the human rights violation that's been used widely by the Indian government to control the people there. And really, we need to look at how we mobilize. And now, certainly, as the chairman of the UK Pakistani Kashmiri Councillors Forum, we've had a lot of discussions on that. We've sort of went, and even through the Labour Party, which I'm a member and all, through our CLPs, through my council, we were the first council to pass a resolution of right of self-determination. But I think it's really important now to start mobilizing this across the UK, wherever, and really bring those responsible people that are doing all this human rights violation and torture. They need to be brought to justice and held accountable. And we, as the councillors, as the international community, must stand in solidarity with the people of Kashmir. And we've got to sort of go around our CLPs, the annual conferences. I think it's really important. Pity the annual conference this time. It's been cancelled because of the COVID, but we still need to, whatever party, whether it's Labour, Conservative, Liberal Democrats, MP, whichever, we need to lobby our member of parliaments. We really need to get the government on our side and all, and we have to sort of make sure that we are writing letters to the foreign secretary. Our prime minister needs to come out, because this is one of the worst tragic case that's on all, and we really need to start asking for an independent inquiry into this judicial killings, and certainly the human rights violation, and even asked whether we can send a fact-finding mission from UK to Kashmir to investigate the brutalities perpetrated by Indian occupying forces, so that those found guilty must be held to account. And we also really need to push and not just connect with the media here, but put pressure on India to allow media and humanitarian access to Kashmir, and also allow urgent, all the medical supplies, ease the lockdown, and look at the, they can't even access people from outside and all. It is really important for us as councillors to ask the British government to take up this issue with India, as all this genocide, all the human rights violation, the double lockdown, since 5th of August, it is horrendous. And we should also be asking India to release all of those prisoners, including those political prisoners and all. And the important thing is, I think, not just that, but we also need to write letters, lobby member of parliaments, but United Nations Security Council they've already asked for an exercise of right of self-determination by the people of Jammu and Kashmir through a free and fair plebiscite held under the United Nations auspices. The Security Council must honor its commitment by implementing its own decisions.
Councillor Liaquat, sorry, because of time constraints, I have to limit everyone, I'm afraid. So I'd like to quickly bring on, thank you so much for your contribution.
Finish this, yeah? It is one of the oldest issues on the United Nations table, and we really need to sort of get together now, and we need to, not just amongst our community, but we need to get other people on board. We need to get the Western media. We need to get member of parliaments. We need to get other people on board so that they can discuss these issues and take it on further up, not just the Kashmiris themselves.
Thank you so much, Councillor. Sorry about that, to cut you off there. It's just that we've got a very limited time constraint. If Councillor Sharda Mirban is still there, are you still there?
I am.
Can I quickly fit you in, because I know you have to leave early?
Yes, I do.
I'd love to have your opinion, please.
Right, okay. Well, a lot of what I was going to say is obviously has already been said, so I don't need to repeat myself. But, we seem to be going round and round in circles at the moment, because even though there is still lobbying going on, we're talking to our MPs, residents, everyone. But, just think of, the error on humanity that's taking place at the moment. the state of Kashmir is not a small issue. We do need to actually do something constructive, get some people who have maybe the influence to be able to do, you know, actual, you know, work on Kashmir to solve the issue. Now, I know we need to get the Western world involved because really they are key players. But I think, you know, somehow, somewhere, the Western world needs to be involved, and it can start right here in the UK. They are a powerful source. Now, we need to use anyone and everyone here that we possibly can to try and influence something to help us with the issue of Kashmir. I think I'll stop there because I think everything else has been said. But I think we do need to put the pressure on and get the Western world to mediate, sit with us, mediate, and try and solve a way forward.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
us.
and I'll say goodbye now. I've got to go, but it was lovely seeing you all. Thank you. Bye.
Right, so can I now have Councillor Mehboob Bhatti from High. Councillor Mehboob Bhatti, are you there?
Sorry, I'm there. I'm sorry. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. I'll be brief. I'm just going to give you a bit of history that I think we need to do some constructive work on this. And can I first of all take the opportunity of thanking Fahim Kiani and especially Tehreek-e-Kashmir for the great work they do, and especially difficult time arranging this meeting. And I also would like to thank all the team, including yourself. And also taking just opportunity to thanking the President for updating and also what he does to raise the profile of Kashmir. I myself, probably some of the new councillors doesn't know, but I myself have been involved in the Kashmir issue since 1987, and I've written more than 10,000 of letters to all over the place. I'm talking about 1987 to 91. But coming back to the second point, that I have not just done that, I have actually moved on, have had a first ever debate in House of Commons. I have taken a delegation to Pakistan, Kashmir. I also taken a delegation to India. When I'm talking about delegation, I'm talking about member of parliament with me. When we went to India, I had Dominic Gree with me, James Alias, Paul Goodman. We went to Delhi, we had a meeting with the Foreign Office in India, discussing and showing our concern. Then we actually, I myself, they had to come back to the MPs. I actually myself and my wife went to Jammu because we originally, our family have come from Jammu. We stayed there for 2 days. We went to Srinagar to see the people view. So we've been busy in all over the place, including in coming back in, before that, we had two global discourse in European Parliament, because James Alias is a chairman of All Party Kashmiri Group in Brussels, and also chairman because he's a president of my organization. So we've been working all over the place in European Parliament, in House of Commons, first ever debate, and in local council, we had a debate. I'm just telling other councillors that we done a debate in last December on this debate on the breaches of human rights and the Article 370-35A, and what's happening at the curfew in India. So that went through. Then we had a meeting with the Secretary for Mark Field. Now we was due to meet our Foreign Secretary, Dominic Rubb, but due to the COVID-19, we couldn't. So we are working to raise the profile and show our concern, what need to be, these people should know. And I think these are councillors and all the people. I had a very interesting, very good point of view from Councillor Aslam and Councillor Liaquat. And I think we should all be working. And I fully support and understand that every councillor makes his contribution, whichever he can, and all the organization make contribution. That's where we are on the issue of Kashmir. That's why in this country and everywhere, people know what the Kashmiri issue is, and I really appreciate everybody's support in this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Now I'm going to move on to, let's see, Councillor Salma Mumtaz from Nottingham.
Okay.
Councillor Salma, are you there?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I am a local councillor for the Labour Party in Nottingham. Since the abrogated on the 5th of August, where India revoked section status of Article 35A and 370, I obviously passed a full motion at the full council as a newly elected councillor, working with other Asian councillors, raising our voices, obviously making other councillors aware that we need to stand united with the Kashmiri heritage in Nottingham, because they are rightly anxious about what is happening in Kashmir, and we cannot be silenced with oppression. Obviously, with the tortures that are taking place, where we're seeing our sisters, our brothers being tortured, attacked on a daily basis. The second thing, what I have actually done as well, is I organised a protest where I had over 450 people turn out, which was a great turnout. We raised our voices, and we will, inshallah, in the future, will continue to raise the voice to free Kashmir one day. I have got my leader of Nottingham City Councillor to write to the Foreign Secretary. We have written a few letters to our local MP, and we will continue to do that until we see peace and self-determination of Kashmir. Thank you.
Very much. Now I'd like to move on to Councillor Iram Ali from Newcastle.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm just going to take my camera off because there's interference on my Wi-Fi for some reason because of that. So I'm going to take the video off until you can all hear me. So yeah, so I am a councillor in Newcastle upon Tyne in the north of the country, and I'm the only female black councillor here and have been for over a decade. I'm also cabinet member for public health and neighbourhoods and the Black and Ethnic Minority Officer on the CLP Executive Committee. So from the 5th of August 2019, we did a rally which was successfully attended by not only the Kashmiri community in Newcastle, but others as well. And we held a meeting inviting our MP and discussed the issues with her. I'm not going to go into details about all of the other little things that we've done to try and forward this agenda, but what I will do, and I will commit to this, is I will try to mobilise a motion to council, which unfortunately didn't get very far the last time we tried to do that for various reasons. We will draft a letter to the Foreign Secretary from the CLP and from Newcastle City Council. We will invite the MP to more meetings to discuss the issue, because I think since the 5th of August last year, because of the lack of media coverage on Kashmir, the issue seems to have died down, and we just need to keep that momentum going. I will try and make it a cross-party issue, and do all of the other things that have been recommended here, certainly by Councillor Member Ritchie. So thank you very much for that. A couple of things that I do just want to say, and I'm mindful of time, is that the difficulty which the President perhaps needs to be aware of for mobilising support in the UK, and this is a personal perspective as a Labour Party member, is the government that we have in power at the moment, a right-wing government, an ideology which has been filtering into our communities by using the right-wing media and racist immigration policy that has dampened any international issue that affects minority communities in the UK, And I think that has been extremely unfortunate in trying to take not only the Kashmir issue forward, but other worldwide atrocities, such as the Rohingyans, for example. However, as a Pakistani, as a Muslim, as a politician, I will do what I can to forward the agenda and do some of the things that I've stated earlier. And I'll leave it to that. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you so much, Councillor. I'm now going to go on to Councillor Asim Rashid from Rochdale. Councillor Asim Rashid from Rochdale.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Fahim Kaini and Uzma Rasool. And I'm really grateful for His Excellency Sardar Masood Sahab. There's a lot of things that's been already discussed, and just like great speeches initially from Sardar Sahab and Altaf Ahmed Sahab. As a councillor and in UK, we all have a responsibility, and the first responsibility is the human rights, because we all advocate, we all raise a voice for human rights anywhere in the world. So I think there is two campaigns we need to run. One is the short-term campaign, which is on the basis of human rights, which has been atrocities been going on in occupied Kashmir, especially from last year in occupied Kashmir. And the second campaign we need to run on the self-determination. Now, the first thing which we need to have an aggressive campaign and raise a voice for the Kashmiri brothers and sisters is on the basis of human rights, how we can give them a justice. Pandemic, this COVID-19 has just given all over the world, and the governments are helping their own people. Sometimes the deprived countries, just like you can see the Brazil, there is a lot of casualty because the healthcare system is not right. Why the Kashmiri people, they are suffering. The World Health Organization should raise a voice. We should raise a voice for the Kashmiri peoples. Especially the first campaign is the human rights on the basis of health issues, because the people are dying there. Freedom and for the struggle for the freedom is on the one side, but on the human basis, the people are dying. What we are doing, the British government is one of the biggest advocate for the human rights, equal rights. When we talk about the equal rights, so where the equality now? So we all working with our member of parliaments closely, all councils they're working. We have passed the motions, fine. But now this is the time how we can get together across the party. And I think we should be a proud British Pakistanis and Kashmiris that we have an opportunity to work for those who are suffering. And the suffering is, the most suffering is from occupied Kashmir. So I can assure all my unit, because I'm the president of the North Kashmiri Councils Forum as well. And it's a really great opportunity that Sardar Masood visited Rochdale and he raised the Kashmiri flag. One of my colleagues is there, Councillor Shakil, is the Kashmiri organization president in Rochdale. So Rochdale Council is one of the council and every year raise the Kashmiri flag. So everybody is working on their stance. We have to work hard, and that's the first thing. We need to raise a voice with the World Health Organization through United Nations that the Kashmiris need immediate help on the basis of healthcare system there. And then we have to go for the self-determination. Thanks, brothers and sisters.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'm now going to move on to Councillor Asif Khan from Watford.
Assalamu alaikum, and can I thank Fahim and Uzma for the invitation, and also thank the President Sardar Masood Sahab for giving a discussion and a talk. My points which I want to focus on today are linked to how we make, how to have effective lobbying. What I've found, and I'm just thinking about this, that we need to stop speaking in a way which doesn't connect with wider society. We shouldn't come across as anti-Indian. Unfortunately, many a time we come across in our rhetoric as anti-Indian. We're absolutely against the Indian government, and the almost pseudo-fascist policies that it's implementing amongst the people. But that's a distinction between anti-Indian, which causes barriers in the communication and the method that we're trying to achieve. As both as a Kashmiri who has heritage both on the occupied side and also in Pakistan side, I can tell you that it is a matter which needs to be absolutely clear that we talk about these things. And many of you mentioned about human rights organizations and how we lobby at them. And lobbying has to be consistent. What happens is it's hot and cold. Sometimes we lobby and stop, and lobby and stop. And what I would recommend, if it hasn't been happening, is almost a quarterly update, at least a quarterly update, sent out electronically to government MPs, councillors and so on, just to highlight where are the facts on the ground. And that's fundamental. Facts on the ground should be the basis of any campaign, whether it's social media, which absolutely needs to take off and use the talents that we have and exploit that. And also highlight the 10 stages of genocide, which Genocide Watch has highlighted that Kashmir now is at that particular phase. So we need to ensure that we are effective in our lobbying, which requires us to be consistent, use the right language, make sure that our rhetoric is in line with our objective, which is to have and liberate Kashmir. And that needs us to be, as I said, consistent. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to quickly fit in. Is Shazia Bashir still there? Shazia Bashir, if you're still there. I understand you have to go quickly, so if you're still there, if I can fit you in. Hello, Councillor Shazia? No, okay, so I'm going to move straight on to the next person, which is Councillor Mohammed Iqbal from Bolton. Councillor Mohammed Iqbal from Bolton.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Sardar Masood Sahib, President of Azad Kashmir. Sir, I've heard everybody make their points. मेरे एक दो सवाल हैं आप तक. I hope you're listening to me. नंबर एक है कि जो हमारा नैरेटिव है कश्मीर पर, उसमें आज दिन तक यूनिफॉर्मिटी नहीं बन सकी. तरह तरह की बोली जाती है. So we need to have some sort of a steer from the government of Kashmir, clear steer कि हमारा narrative क्या होना चाहिए, what do we want. और वही जो बात है हर आदमी जो है उसको उसी के मुताबिक बात करनी चाहिए. We need to speak from the same hymn sheet. उसके अलावा, because you are in a position of power, and I'm sure you can have a dialogue with the President of Prime Minister of Pakistan, कि ऐसे लोगों को कश्मीर कमेटी का चेयरमैन बना दिया जाता है जिनकी वजह से फायदे के बजाय नुकसान होता है कश्मीर कोस को. तो ये दो पॉइंट हैं, बाकी तो बातें बहुत हो चुकी हैं. ये दो पॉइंट है. एक तो ये है कि हमें क्लियर नैरेटिव चाहिए कि हमें कौन सी बातें एडवोकेट करनी है, हमारा केस क्या है, क्योंकि आज दिन तक जो आम पब्लिक है उसमें ये बात क्लियर नहीं हो सकी. बिल्कुल नहीं, तरह तरह की बातें की जाती हैं. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your contribution there. Now I'd like to bring on Councillor Hussain from Blackburn. Councillor Hussain Akhtar from Blackburn. Right, so I'm going to move on to the next person. Can I now have, let's see who we have here. Could we have Mohammed Hanif Raja from Glasgow? Councillor Mohammed Hanif Raja from Glasgow now.
Mute. Is it? Assalamu alaikum to everyone. Let me, before I give my point of views, I think everyone made a
brilliant contributions, and I echo the sentiments been expressed by all my colleagues across the city, across the country. They made a major contribution. I want to bring one or two attention to Fahim Kiani. First of all, must congratulate Fahim for organizing this event. This is a brilliant idea that he explored to get all the councillors together. To Mr. Butt, the councillor in this country makes a larger contribution than anyone else. We have a devolved parliament in Britain, which consists of 4 parliaments: Wales, Scotland, Ireland, and England. And 4 devolved parliament have their own MSPs: member of Scottish Parliament, member of Wales Parliament, member of Irish Parliament, and the 4 parliaments have their own jobs to do. They have own responsibilities, except 4 or 5 issues which relates with the central government, and foreign policies based with the central government. So we don't need to lobby over parliamentarians. We need to ask them because they're our colleagues. And I think that every councillor can make a contribution and speak to their colleagues. I mean, I have 2 MPs, MSPs and MPs. So I need to lobby both. So when lobbying means that I can speak to them because they are my colleagues. So we can make a larger contribution. My colleagues from across country, from UK, have a major role to play because they are the backbone of any parliament system, because in this country, the local authorities has a major responsibilities. So there is no bosses in this society. We don't have MPs over bosses or MSPs my boss. So everything they do, they need to request local authority for the part they play. Let me explain to, Fahim did a wonderful contribution today to organizing this event. This is the first time I've been on this web conference in presence of His Excellency, President of Azad Kashmir. He is making a brilliant contribution since this thing has started, because he is the only one who has been seen to be taking part in every events, irrespective whether it's a Tehreek-e-Kashmir or anyone else. He's always there. And I think thanks go to Fahim Kiani that he has organized this. And he's doing a wonderful job, not only for Kashmiris, for Kashmiri across the world. He's conveying this message. So my message to Fahim is the next time we should pick 2 or 3 councillors from each party, because today presentation of the 4 parties, you have a Liberal, you have a Labour, you have a Tory, and you have Liberal Democrat. And of course, if you can get SNP or Wales and Irish, it will be a great contribution. So we should have picked 2 or 1 councillor from each regions to speak, because we have a 43 representation today, and everyone likes to make a contribution, because of course they want to, because they made a lot of contribution to what's Kashmir. I mean, I as a Glasgow city councillor, I moved a motion in Kashmir, and it was last year in October, full council, and which was passed unanimously by all party groups. So these sort of things, all council can do that. If every council passes a resolution on Kashmir, at least it creates awareness. And I think this is very important that you should call this meeting every quarterly or bi-monthly, so that people can hear their views, but only pick 2 or 3 councillors each wards, each party, so they can make a contribution to their parties. It is very important, rather than us 43 of us speaking on the issues, and we keep repeating repetition on the issue that we try to highlight. So it will be ideal situation if you can get 6 or 5 councillors across the country to speak on issues from different parties, and that will give us a collective responsibilities, because Labour members have been spoken. I echo the same sentiment with the Labour, and also with the Mahbub Saab is from, I'm sure he's from Tory, and he's making a great contribution. I know him so well. He's been speaking in Kashmir for many years, and others also has done great contribution. So making this events going forward, my suggestion is you should have about 20-second introduction for each councillor who is representing today. So he can introduce he and him or her can introduce themselves, and then we have 2 speakers from each party to make a contribution, and because we are speaking the same aims the rest of them are saying, because issues the same and highlighting is same, moving motions are same. So if you can just have two from each party, and thank you again to the President Azad Kashmir taking a part every meeting, and thank you to Bhatt Sahab as well, that he's making a great contribution, not only speaking in the webs, but he's also highlighting media and social media and electronic media. He is a great advocate for Kashmir, and thank you once again to Fahim Kiani. And Uzma, thank you to you. You're excellent manager of this today, especially muting everyone in your control, which is a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Raja. I'm now going to go on to Councillor Mushtaq Ahmed from Redbridge, which is in London.
Okay,
Councillor Mushtaq.
thank you, Uzma, and thank you, Fahim, for organizing this. And again, I wouldn't go in repeating, but by and large agree with the points raised as a part of lobbying our MPs, working with the councils, and raising human rights. I think one thing which we can do is maybe look outwards. Means all of us have our circles. If we are working in like other than local authority, means there we can also speak to other people and at least engage and tell them. Means I have few Indian colleagues, and it's like when you talk to them and tell them exactly what is happening, because unfortunately media people can only believe what they hear, and they don't know the real story. They don't know the atrocities what are going on. They don't know the suffering what is happening. And I would say that we should not only just like, yes, MPs, local councils, that is a great way, but it's like the other human interactions which we have in our social circles. It's important that we can tell them what is happening and take it from there. And another thing, but I would say that means all of us are doing things individually, means working with MPs, working with local authorities. But if we have some kind of a joint kind of not forum, but some kind of organization, a committee where we can share the information, all the new stats and what is coming, just again share with each other and work on those lines. That will be really helpful. And again, thank you everyone, and thank you President Saab also that he took the time off and spoke to us today nicely. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ahmed. I'm now going to go on to Councillor Altaf Ahmed from Oxford now. Another Ahmed. Altaf Ahmed from Oxford.
Thank you very much. It's Altaf Khan from Oxford.
Altaf Khan, sorry.
Yeah, from Oxford. Thank you, Fahim Sahab, for organizing this. And may I say Assalamu alaikum to all of you, and especially President of AJK for taking the time. As a British Kashmiri who comes not far from the control line, we are not doing this for the politics' sake, is for our survival of the families who live there in Kashmir on both sides and suffer day and night. On the 6 points, I would coming to the point, if we really wanted to make a progress, and I have said this to President Saab, to the AJK Prime Minister, to the High Commissioner in UK, that we do need a proper strategy, a strategy which can cover all of these 6 points, and then reviewing every quarterly how we went through that strategy. We don't have any strategy. We are doing in a very piecemeal thing. This Fahim Sahab doing great job. He organized this. Next another week, so few months, another organizations will be organizing another things. Pakistani Kashmiri leaders comes here.
We are doing things in piecemeal.
And they keep telling other you know, the different communities, different things, trying to meeting here, appointing advisors, appointing the Kashmir Council, or different sort of things which are not that effective to me. We needed to have a proper strategy led by the AJK government, which should be a base camp for the freedom of Kashmir, and trying to highlight the issues on not national, international levels. So there is not such efforts being made, but a small efforts by different people, which will be shared by different social medias and different media. And mainly the media and people we talking know the issues. Today, I'm thankful of my brothers, sisters, councillors from all over the UK. Majority of them know what the issue and what the problem is. We should have been coming to the point, how should we address these problems? Coming to one of the points, having motions in full council, Oxford, a cross-party motion was passed in November. We had feedback from both of MPs who have written to the foreign minister, to the home minister, the prime minister. We got a copy of letters. One of my colleague councillor is here at this forum. She can witness that. But these are our individual efforts. We need together a strategy which needed to be reviewed every so on so, and taking all the political parties, councillors, MPs, House of Lords members, and the other business community. We have a large diaspora here, about 1.2 million living here, the biggest community. We could make big difference, but we don't have a unified policy to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. And now we are taking, I think a lot of you have suggested a councillors network. We will be working on that. So we're planning to make a mailing list and have actually a proper network of councillors. There's actually more than 40. Last time, I believe, Tehreek-e-Kashmir hosted more than 175 actually. They had one of the largest meetings ever. So we are actually going to organise a proper network mailing list, a regular platform where local government can meet together and work on strategy. So that is something we're looking at. Now, the next councillor I'd like to bring on is Councillor Javerio Hussain from Luton. Councillor Javerio Hussain, if you're there.
Yes, thank you ever so much. Assalamu alaikum, and it's nice to hear from everybody. Some very informative discussions taking place. As my colleagues from Luton, I'm straight to the point person, so I'm going to try and keep this as quick as I can. Just a few points, Mr. President, if I may. First of all, education is very important. Education in terms of making the wider community understand this is wider. This is beyond the Pakistani Kashmiri community. The Western communities understand, especially young people understand what the facts of the ground are, for instance, and also, you know, what the issues are. And I understand that on one of your previous visits, you came and visited a university here in the UK. I think that's a very good idea, because from that way, people, especially young people and students, I mean, we need to mobilize students, I guess that's the key point. And for you to come and speak to students, for instance, and explain to them what the facts on the grounds are, and show that this is a AJK, you know, this is a Kashmir-led issue. I mean, that's really, really important. And if any of us know, you know, universities or educational establishments that will be able to assist with this, then I think that's really, really important that we actually use that. Second point is, you know, councillors, yes, absolutely, grassroots level, we have a very important role to play here. But Mr. President, this is my request to you. It's important that you reach out to especially your newly elected councillors. I mean, I've noted that when Fahim Saab, thank you very much for the invite to this, when he was sending an invite to all the councillors for this particular event, as it were, there were a number of councillors who were no longer councillors. So it's really, really important. You know, there are a lot of young councillors who have actually just joined. Now, reaching out to them, you know, vis-a-vis, you can do it through a Zoom call, speaking to them about what the issues are and asking them, you know, how they can help and support you. You know, that's really important, you know, for us to be able to feel that, yes, our government is connecting with us directly. You know, one of the points I'm going to make this, I'm going to try and say this in the nicest way possible, is that you need to move away from, you know, speaking to the same individuals. I'm pretty certain there are all these individuals, you know, that have done, you know, 20, 30 years for the Kashmir movement, you know, lobby campaign whatsoever. But it's really important that what you also need to do, engage with those new individuals that you've never engaged with before, and that's, you know, your new councillors such as myself. I mean, I've been trying to get you know, a small meeting request with you with a number of women as well. I mean, women are important in this, and it's nice to see you know, fellow female councillors here, but the voice of women and the voice of youth is very, very important here. The other point quickly is on human rights. You know, this isn't a Labour Party issue. This isn't a Conservative Party issue. This isn't a Pakistan and India issue. I mean, we need to obviously, you know, I agree with, I think it was one of the councillors said about the rhetoric. We need to get the rhetoric right. This is the Indian government. It's not the Indian community, because I'm pretty certain there are individuals in the Indian state itself that actually support the Kashmiri rights, you know, that are raising their voices, but it's about the Indian government, and we need to get that rhetoric right. And we need to lobby when it comes to human rights. We need to be speaking to the human rights organizations such as Amnesty International. I can tell you now, if you look on Amnesty International's website, they have lots of written reports on the atrocities against women, children and young girls in Jammu and Kashmir day in, day out. That's who we should be speaking to mobilize them and get them on side, because that's really, really important. Finally, I think the point I really want to make is that, I mean, this is a very, really, really useful initiative that's taking place. I mean, it's really important that, you know, we all come together and combine our efforts. But what I'd like to see going forward is for a strategy document that's actually initiated by the AJK government, you know, to be circulated to councillors so we can feed into it and give our input. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Hussain. You were excellent contributions. We are taking on board everything that's being said. We are going to actually write down the ideas here today and give them back to you so everyone can see what we all came up with. And we are going to be doing regular meetings. I'm now going to quickly go on to Councillor Jamila Azad from Oxford, if you're there. Jamila Azad? Assalamu alaikum.
Oh, walaikum assalam. Thank you very much, everybody, and very valuable contributions from every one of you. But as Councillor Iltaf Khan said, that we have put so many motions at Oxford City Council regarding a controversial nationality law. India is opposing human rights which Kashmiris have in Kashmir, and speaking up and taking our lobby in Oxford City Council. And our MP has written letters to Secretary of State, to local government, but we are not getting no answers. So I wonder if we all lobby local government outside Parliament, all councillors in Britain, and we might get some positive answer from them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Now can I have Councillor Mohammed Sharif from Slough? Councillor Mohammed Sharif from Slough.
Hello, assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. I think I've already, to save the time, I have already put my, points onto a chat group. And, my sort of suggestion is reiterate what Councillor Javerio said earlier. We need to work on Amnesty International. And there is a South Asia solidarity, which has many union members, also Indian origin, members, and also Asian members. They are very, very strongly supporting Kashmir. They've done a few protests, and their protests at various places in London and other places have sort of been very pro-active and constructive. And I would suggest that we should work with those organizations. And our, what we do is, in my view, I'm sorry if I, upset anybody. We are running around headless, like a headless chicken. We don't have a goals to achieve. We don't have a direction to sort of go to those goals. So my view is we need to set up a goals. For example, at the moment, India is successful because they are making Kashmir as a dispute between India and Pakistan. So when you go and see MP, they simply say, oh, we will encourage India and Pakistan to resolve this in a dialogue manner. That is not the issue for us. Our issue is persuade them that this is not a dispute between India and Pakistan. This is a human rights issue. And number two is get our MPs not to say we will support Kashmir, we will ask India and Pakistan to resolve in a dialogue manner, but condemn the atrocities that is happening in Kashmir. I don't hear many MPs condemning the atrocities, all those happening in Kashmir. Point number 3 is UK has just made a global international policy for human rights. They will apply sanctions where there is a human rights abuse. So here we need to lobby this government saying, India is not allowing international observer. India is not allowing international journalists. So if they are not allowing these, we should be applying sanctions against India. So point number 5 is, work with and support people who support Kashmir issue within CLPs. You organizing this council convention, I think is very useful, very important. I think equally CLPs are very important. Usma, you are familiar with yourself, sort of thing. You took a motion which was passed from CLP and then went to the conference. And those motions are sitting at the conference. They were not converted into Labour Party policy. That's what Starmer and other people are saying. It's not a Labour Party policy is different. So we need to convert those motions, those things into Labour Party policies, and same with the Conservative. So objective should be to get the Kashmir issue into the party policy manifestos. So saving time, I think these are my points, and this is my suggestion for going forward. Have a goals, have a direction towards those goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharif. I'm now going to bring on Councillor Seger from Burnley. Seger.
Assalamu alaikum. And thank you everyone for being here today, especially Kiani Saab, Uzma and other fellow councillors, the President of Azad Jammu Kashmir, Sardar Masood Saab. So I just want to say a little bit about myself. So I'm from Midbar, Azad Jammu Kashmir, and I'm a Labour councillor in Burnley. Since a very young age, we've heard about everything which is happening in Azad Jammu Kashmir. It's been ongoing since 1947. It's important we all stick together, ensuring we're raising our voices now to support them in any possible way we can. In Burnley, we've passed a motion anonymously, and we've got that passed from all political parties. We've had a petition with over 1,000 signatures, that again from all different communities. We've passed this over to the Foreign Office, and our local MP, Anthony, has promised to support us with the petition and ensure that he's going to make all the Kashmir, everything that's happening in Kashmir recognised and make everyone aware of it. I do feel it's really important, with all the advice we've been given today, we coordinate between all the different communities, with all the different parties and all the different councillors to work on human rights together. And we need to make sure we put all the political parties, everything aside, and just set our goals and ensure we are following them to support in any way we possibly can. Thank you.
Now I'm going to move on to Councillor Mohammed Seger from Nottingham. Are you there now, Mohammed Seger?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I would like to thank Fahim Kiani Saab and yourself to organize this event, and Mr. President of Azad Kashmir. I've heard all the colleagues, speaking about different issues, and मैं चाहता हूँ कि President साहब हैं मौजूद, तो मैं उनसे एक बात, and I would like President to answer this question for me, please. कि जो पार्टीज हमारी इलेक्शन लड़ती हैं आज़ाद कश्मीर के अंदर, एक तो स्लोगन है कि कश्मीर बनेगा पाकिस्तान, और मैं समझता हूँ कि ये जो डैमेज कर रहा है हमें, हम जो कैंपेन कर रहे हैं यूरोप के अंदर और जो हम कैंपेन कर रहे हैं बाहर, ये स्लोगन जो है ना कश्मीर बनेगा पाकिस्तान, ये हमें डैमेज कर रहा है। और दूसरा हम जो बात कर रहे हैं कि सेल्फ डिटर्मिनेशन की, कि यूरोपियन कंट्रीज हमारी मदद करें, तो जो इलेक्शन में जो तो पाकिस्तान की बात करते हैं कि कश्मीर बनेगा पाकिस्तान, वो तो इलेक्शन के लिए आज़ाद कश्मीर में जा सकते हैं, तो जो इंडिपेंडेंट के हामी हैं उनको इलेक्शन लड़ने की क्यों इजाज़त नहीं दी जाती? एक तो मेरा ये क्वेश्चन है। और दूसरा ये है कि हमारी वॉइस आप हैं, आप जैसे कि मेरे कोलीग्स ने कहा है कि आप आर्गुमेंट्स में हिस्सा लेते हैं और ये बड़ी खुशी की बात है कि आप और प्रेसिडेंट और प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफ साउथ कश्मीर राजा फारूक हैदर खान साहब, ये आप हमारी आवाज़ हैं। लेकिन हमें एक चीज़ क्लियर करनी चाहिए और आप भी हमें बताएं कि एक सिमत पे हमें चलना है। ये कितनी बातें हुई हैं और ये डिवाइड है हमारे अंदर कि ये कुछ काउंसिलर कुछ कह रहे हैं, कुछ आदमी कुछ कह रहे हैं, और हम अगर यूरोपियन लोगों से उम्मीद रखते हैं, मसलन मुझे पता है कि हर काउंसलर अपनी हैसियत के मुताबिक वो अपनी काउंसिल के अंदर काम कर रहे हैं, जैसा कि हमने वो हमारी काउंसलर सलमा मुमताज ने बात की है पहले कि कश्मीर पर मोशन हमें पास करवाया यूनानिमसली और क्रॉस पार्टी, टोरी पार्टी वहाँ थी, लिबरल डेमोक तो है नहीं, ये इंडिपेंडेंट वाले, और उन्होंने भी हमारा साथ दिया, यूनानिमसली उसको पास करवाया हमने। तो हमें ये चाहिए कि अगर हम सेल्फ डिटर्मिनेशन की बात करते हैं तो फिर ये इलाक का जो मसला है ना, इसको जरा इसको सोच समझ के हमें इस्तेमाल करना चाहिए कि अभी हम एक तरफ तो हम कह रहे हैं कि हमें सेल्फ डिटर्मिनेशन चाहिए कि कश्मीर ने हम कश्मीर ने करना क्या है, और दूसरी तरफ हम ये नारे लगा रहे हैं कि कश्मीर बनेगा पाकिस्तान, तो ये हमें डैमेज करता है। तो सदर साहब प्लीज मुझे इस पर आप जवाब दें इस बात में भी। और दूसरा ये कि जो पार्टीज इंडिपेंडेंट चाहते हैं कि कश्मीर आज़ाद हो, उनको इलेक्शन लड़ने की इजाज़त क्यों नहीं दी जाती आज़ाद कश्मीर के अंदर। थैंक यू।
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Could I now have Councillor Kashif Chowdhury from Luton? Kashif Chowdhury from Luton.
Assalamu alaikum everybody, and thank you, Fahim Qureshi Saab and Uzma Saab and other organizers of this noble event. It's quite late, and I've got a couple of quickly make a couple of points. Is that obviously we really condemn this Indian curfew in Kashmir for nearly 1 year now. So it's a human rights violation going on for decades. But as lots of people already spoken about the Kashmir, so I've got a couple of questions to the President. So I take this opportunity, the President here. But first of all, we'll be hearing this. Obviously, I believe the knowledge and information is the power. More knowledge and more power information we have, and we can speak more better way. So we are hearing in social media that the government of Pakistan trying to bring 14th amendment in Act 74. So, I haven't heard any official statement from the government of Azad Jammu Kashmir to clarify that. So I would really appreciate, I'm hearing these rumors that the government of Pakistan trying to bring same laws as India in Indian Kashmir. So it's I hope that this is not the true. If it's true, it's going to be very sad for the Kashmir issue, and it's going to be the disaster ever. If that would have been happening, I think the Kashmir issue will be finished. No more. The Kashmiri will have nowhere to go. And the second point, and I have seen this a very very tragic picture on the YouTube today regarding a young boy got killed by the Punjab police. The boy was from Islamabad. It's just very sad. It's just we can't allow these kind of things happening in Azad Kashmiri. This is
sorry to interrupt. Because it's been over 2 hours now, I need to make sure that we kind of get done before 6:30. So thank you very much, Ms. Kasha, for your points. I will write them down, and we will kind of be using something on them. We are going to do follow-up meetings so you can elaborate more on your points if you need to with the President. Now, could I get who else hasn't spoken yet and would like to speak? Let me just take who we have left here. I know many have had to leave because it's gone on quite long. Let's see who else is there. Councillor Khatija, would you like to talk, please? Councillor Khatija, are you there? Hello, Councillor Khatija? No? Okay. Are there any councillors that would like to speak, for the ones that are remaining with us at the moment, who haven't spoken yet? If you could just maybe raise a hand. Anyone else? Okay, so I'm going to quickly go back to the president, if that's okay.
Councillor Idris and Councillor Maqsood.
Could I have Councillor Mohammed Idris then from Birmingham? Councillor Mohammed Idris from Birmingham.
He just turned the video on, but Councillor Maqsood from Walthamstow. Turn the video on.
And is that Councillor Masood Ahmed from Walthamstow?
Yes, Councillor Idris, could you? Okay, just now.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yeah, Councillor Mohammed Idris from Birmingham. First of all, I would like to thank Fahim Kiani and Sardar Masood Khan, the president of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, for highlighting the atrocities being committed by Indian government and Indian forces. I don't want to repeat all the things that have been said. I just got two suggestions. One is, I want to say to the president that he's been in the Foreign Office for a long time himself. And I think it's important for the Foreign Service to engage with all the High Commissioners and ambassadors based in Islamabad and highlight the issues through them to the world, what India is doing. And secondly, I think, we hold a lot of rallies and protests highlighting the atrocities committed by India in London and other places, but we fail to engage with the mainstream media, and we also need to engage with the mainstream general public, because they are the ones who makes a lot of difference. And also, as councillors and as a general public, we should be writing to the local newspapers, because that's really important as well. With that, I will finish.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Now, I believe there's one more Councillor, Masood Ahmed from Walthamstow, if you are still there.
Can you unmute yourself, Councillor Maqsood Ahmed, please?
Councillor Masood. Oh, yeah.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for giving me chance to speak. I myself is not Kashmiri. I come from Multan, right? And I always support Kashmiri movement, because Kashmiris deserve the right under the resolutions of United Nations. And what I always say is that we have been campaigning throughout in grassroots, like local level. But what's happening on the top level, like Prime Minister and Foreign Office, British Foreign Office, right? What is the outcome over there in House of Lords, in House of Commons? That's where we need to pressurize. That's my point, right? I don't want to be speaking very long, because already a lot of speakers have spoken too much back detail. And the final point is lockdown is so difficult, so terrible. We have gone through this, and we should realize and make these people realize how difficult Kashmiris are living over a year now, nearly a year in this lockdown situation. And they need to wake up. They are conscious. That's my point. Thank you very much for giving me a chance to speak.
Thank you. From what I can see, most of the councillors that are left have spoken. Councillor Khadija, if you want to have one last chance to speak, Councillor Khadija. I don't think she's there. So I'm going to quickly take it back to the President so he can address any of your queries, etc. So we'll have some closing remarks from His Excellency. So Your Excellency, when you're ready.
मुझे फ़हीम कियानी साहब की तरफ से बताया गया था कि सारे लोग जो है उर्दू समझते हैं। मैंने अपने बात का आगाज़ जो है वो अंग्रेज़ी से किया था, तो अभी जो मैं बात कर रहा हूँ वो उर्दू में कह रहा हूँ। کچھ مجھ سے سوالات بھی پوچھے گئے ہیں، لیکن اس سے پہلے کہ میں سوالات کا جواب دوں، ایک مرتبہ پھر جو ہے میں فہیم کیانی صاحب کا، عظمیٰ رسول آپ کا شکریہ ادا کرتا ہوں، کیونکہ یہ آپ نے نئی ٹیکنالوجی جو ہے اس کا بہترین استعمال کیا ہے کہ یہاں ہم نے برطانیہ بھر سے سارے کاؤنسلرز کو سنا ہے، ایک ایک کی رائے سنی ہے، اور میں اس بات کے لیے بہت شکر گزار ہوں کہ انہیں یہ جذبہ ہے کہ وہ کشمیر کے لیے جدوجہد کرتے رہیں گے، ماضی میں بھی کرتے رہے ہیں اور مستقبل میں بھی کرتے رہیں گے۔ تو یہ میرے لیے بہت خوشی کی بات ہے کہ وہ دل سے بول رہے تھے، ان کا کشمیر سے تعلق ہو یا نہ ہو، وہ یہ کہہ رہے تھے، اس عہد کی تجدید کر رہے تھے کہ وہ کشمیر کے لیے ہر وقت متحرک رہیں گے برطانیہ میں۔ تو میں ایک مرتبہ پھر ان کا شکریہ ادا کرنا چاہتا ہوں۔ فہیم کیانی صاحب جو ہے وہ انیشیٹو لیتے ہیں، لیکن جو باقی لوگ ہیں وہ رضاکارانہ طور پر جب سڑکوں اور چوراہوں پہ آتے ہیں، یا جو لندن میں آتے ہیں یا امریکہ بھی گئے تھے پچھلی مرتبہ، تو اس کی وجہ سے دنیا جو ہے وہ نوٹس کرتی ہے کہ اس طریقے سے عالمی رائے عامہ کشمیر کی حمایت کر رہی ہے یا اہل کشمیر کی حمایت کر رہی ہے۔ تو اس کے لیے میں برطانیہ کے تمام کاؤنسلرز کا شکر گزار ہوں، ان کے آج کی شرکت کا اور مستقبل کے بارے میں جو وہ کوششیں کرنے والے ہیں۔ سوالات کا جواب میں دیتا ہوں۔ آصف خان صاحب نے یہ پوچھا تھا کہ جناب اس کو ہمارا جو ریٹرک ہے اس کو اینٹی انڈیا نہ بنایا جائے، تو یہ بات بالکل درست ہے۔ جب ہم بات کر رہے ہوتے ہیں تو ہم ہندوستان کی حکومت کی بات کر رہے ہوتے ہیں۔ جب میں نے بھی بات کی تو میں نے راشٹریہ سوائم سیوک سنگھ کی بات کی اور بھارتیہ جنتا پارٹی کی تھی، کیونکہ ان کا ایک مخصوص ذہن ہے، ایک مخصوص فلسفہ ہے، ایک مخصوص نظریہ ہے۔ اس کی وجہ سے وہ مسلمانوں کو تنگ کر رہے ہیں یا ان کو قتل کر رہے ہیں ہندوستان میں، اور اب جو ہے مسلمانوں کا قتل عام انہوں نے جموں کشمیر میں شروع کر دیا ہے، تو اس کو رکوانا ہے۔ ہم جب بھی بات کر رہے ہیں اس سلسلے میں، کشمیر کے سلسلے میں، تو ہم جو 1.3 ارب ہندوستانیوں کے بارے میں بات نہیں کر رہے ہیں۔ یہ میں آپ کو بتانا چاہتا ہوں کہ جب بھارتیہ جنتا پارٹی اور راشٹریہ سوائم سیوک سنگھ نے مل کے ایک منصوبے کے تحت پچھلے سال کشمیر کے اوپر قبضہ کیا تھا، تو بھارت کے طول و عرض پہ لوگوں نے اس کے اوپر احتجاج کیا تھا۔ اس میں سیاسی جماعتیں بھی شامل تھیں، اور اس میں جو شہری بھی شامل تھے، اس میں دلت شامل تھے، اس میں سکھ شامل تھے، اس میں جو لوور کاسٹ ہندوز جو ہیں اور جو ہیں وہ سارے کے سارے شامل تھے۔ تو وہ یہ جو براہمن کا فلسفہ ہے یا یہ جو مذہبی برتری کا فلسفہ ہے، یہ قبول کرنے کے لیے تیار نہیں۔ وہ ہمارے حلیف ہیں، وہ کشمیریوں کے حق میں آواز اٹھانے کے لیے تیار ہیں، لیکن بھارتیہ جنتا پارٹی نے کچھ اس قسم کا بیانیہ بنایا ہے کہ جو بھی کشمیر کے بارے میں بات کرتا ہے کہتے ہیں کہ یہ غدار ہے، اور جو مسلمانوں کے حقوق کی ہندوستان میں بات کرتا ہے وہ کہتے ہیں یہ پاکستان کا ایجنٹ ہے، اور اسے کہتے ہیں کہ تم پاکستان چلے جاؤ۔ تو یہ مشکلات جو ہے ہر فسطائی حکومت کی طرح بھارتیہ جنتا پارٹی نے پیدا کی ہوئی ہے، اور اس کا بھارتی شہری مقابلہ کر رہے ہیں۔ میں نے جب کہا تھا شروع میں، جب میری بات ہو رہی تھی، تو میں نے کہا تھا کہ یہ جو اقدامات بھارتیہ جنتا پارٹی اور راشٹریہ سوائم سیوک سنگھ کر رہی ہیں، ان سے سب سے زیادہ خطرہ خود بھارت کو ہے۔ یعنی اس طریقے سے آپ نہیں کسی کے گھر جا سکتے، جیسے کشمیریوں کے گھر، اس کے اوپر قبضہ کر لیں اور اس کے بعد ان سے ملازمتیں، روزگار چھین لیں، ان کو اپنے گھر میں بے گھر کر دیں، اپنے وطن میں بے وطن کر دیں۔ تو یہ نہیں ہو سکتا۔ اس کا سب سے بڑا نقصان جو ہے خود ریاست ہندوستان کو ہوگا۔ بڑی بڑی آج سے 1920 کا منظرنامہ دیکھ لیجئے کہ اس وقت دنیا میں کون سی طاقتیں تھی، آج وہ رہی ہیں۔ تو کیا ہندوستان جو ہے اس کے پاس ایسی جادو کی کون سی چھڑی ہے کہ وہ کشمیریوں کے اوپر اس قسم کا کلونیلزم مسلط کرے گا؟ آج جو ہے وہ اس کے بعد جو ہے اسے برقرار رکھ سکے گا؟ اچھا جی، میں مختصراً جواب آتا ہوں۔ اقبال صاحب نے کہا ہے کہ ہمارا ایک بیانیہ ہونا چاہیے، تو ہمارا ایک ہی بیانیہ ہے، اور وہ ہے حق خود ارادیت کا، وہ اقوام متحدہ کی قراردادوں کا، وہ کشمیریوں کی مرکزیت کا کہ وہ فیصلہ کریں۔ فیصلہ انہوں نے کرنا ہے، لیکن یہ ہے کہ اس میں مختلف اپروچز ہیں، اور جو بھی اگر آپ دیکھیں کہ جب بھی کہیں بھی تحریک آزادی ہوتی ہے تو لوگوں کو کوشش کر کے ایک پلیٹ فارم پہ اکٹھا کرنا پڑتا ہے۔ مختلف بیانیے کے باوجود بھی آپ اپنی جد و جہد جاری رکھیے، اور اگر فرض کیجئے کہ کوئی نظریاتی اختلاف ہے تو اس کو بالائے طاق رکھ کے یعنی نظریاتی یا جماعتی اختلاف ہے تو اس کو بالائے طاق رکھ کے آپ ایک پلیٹ فارم پہ اکٹھے ہوں اور جن نکات کے اوپر آپ کو اتفاق ہے ان پر آپ ایک لائحہ عمل بنائیں، ایک اسٹریٹجی بنائیں اور ایک دوسرے کے ساتھ تعاون کریں۔ دوسرا یہ ہے کہ کشمیر کمیٹی کے حوالے سے میں یہ کہتا ہوں کہ اب ایک نئے چیئرمین ہیں، پہلے جو لوگ ہیں وہ مولانا فضل الرحمان صاحب کے بارے میں شکایت کیا کرتے تھے، اب جو ہے نئے ایک وہ آئے ہیں، تو اسی قیادت کے ساتھ کام کیجیے، اور اگر آپ کے اور ہمارے درمیان کوئی باہمی اختلافات ہیں تو ان کو نشر کرنے کی ضرورت نہیں ہے، کیونکہ اس طریقے سے ہندوستان کی بلکہ بھارتیہ جنتا پارٹی کی حوصلہ افزائی ہوتی ہے کہ یہ جی آپس میں لڑ رہے ہیں اور یہ ہم سے کیا مقابلہ کریں گے، تو ذرا اس بات کی تھوڑی سی احتیاط کر لیا کریں۔ دوسری جو ہے، جو جویریہ صاحبہ نے بہت سے نکات اٹھائے ہیں، میں یونیورسٹیوں میں جاتا رہا ہوں، جاتا رہوں گا، میں تقریباً لگ بھگ 15 برطانوی یونیورسٹیز میں جا چکا ہوں، اور جو ہے جب میں ملیشیا کا دورہ کیا تھا تو وہ یونیورسٹی آف کوالالمپور میں بھی گیا تھا۔ خاص طور سے میں یونیورسٹیوں میں بات چیت کے لیے جاتا ہوں، اور امریکہ میں بھی جہاں کہیں موقع ملتا ہے میں سول سوسائٹی سے ملتا ہوں، ان کی بار سے ملاقات ہوئی تھی، ان کے تھنک ٹینک سے ملاقات ہوئی تھی، تو اور میں خاص طور سے اس لیے یونیورسٹیوں میں جاتا ہوں کہ جو وہاں طلباء اور طالبات ہیں وہ مستقبل کے معمار ہیں اور ان کے ساتھ رابطے بہت ضروری ہیں۔ جویریہ صاحبہ نے ایک بہت اچھی تجویز دی ہے کہ جو نئے کاؤنسلرز کے ساتھ رابطہ کیا جائے، اور میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ فہیم کیانی صاحب اس کا اہتمام کریں گے، اور انہوں نے ایک اور نقطہ اٹھایا ہے کہ خواتین اور نوجوانوں کے ساتھ رابطے ہونے چاہیے۔ تو میں جب برطانیہ جاتا تھا، امریکہ میں بھی، لیکن برطانیہ میں بالخصوص فہیم کیانی صاحب نے اسی قسم کی ایک کانفرنس کا اہتمام کیا تھا جہاں صرف نوجوان تھے، یعنی طلباء اور طالبات تھے، اور خواتین تھیں۔ میں پھر جو ہے خواتین کے گروپ سے وہاں کئی مرتبہ ملا ہوں، اور خواتین کانفرنسز میں نے شرکت کی ہے۔ اس کے علاوہ جو یوتھ کے لیے الگ سے جو ہے ہم نے بریفنگ کی ہے، اور بلکہ جب میں لاسٹ ٹائم برطانیہ میں تھا تو ہم نے یہ کیا ہوا تھا کہ جو تمام یونیورسٹیز میں پاکستانی یونینز کے یا جو پاکستانی نمائندے ہیں، لیڈرز ہیں، ان کو ایک یونیورسٹی میں اکٹھا کیا تھا، 50 کے قریب تھے، تو ان کا ایک کوکس بنایا تھا کہ آپ جائیں، کیونکہ میں ہر وقت تو نہیں برطانیہ آ سکتا، تو جا کے آپ جو ہے مختلف یونیورسٹیز میں اور یونیورسٹی سے جڑے ہوئے جو ادارے ہیں اس میں مسئلہ کشمیر کی وضاحت کریں۔ اس کے علاوہ یہ ہے کہ یہ انہوں نے ایک تجویز دی ہے کہ ہم حقوق انسانی کی تنظیموں کے ساتھ کام کریں، تو ہم کر رہے ہیں۔ وہ ایمنسٹی انٹرنیشنل ہے، ہیومن رائٹس واچ ہے، فزیشنز فار ہیومن رائٹس ہے، ایشیا واچ ہے، اور یہ جتنی بھی آرگنائزیشنز ان کے ساتھ کام کر رہی ہیں، ہم کام کر رہے ہیں، اور وہ جو ہے وہ بڑی رپورٹیں شائع کرتے ہیں، جس کی وجہ سے جو چیز ہم کہتے ہیں اس کی کریڈیبلٹی بڑھتی ہے، کیونکہ صرف یہ بات ہماری زبان سے نہیں ہو رہی، یہ اس قسم کی جو آرگنائزیشنز ہیں، ہیومن رائٹس آرگنائزیشنز ہیں، وہ بھی کام کر رہی ہیں۔ اچھا، دوسرا ایک چیز میں آپ کو بتانا چاہتا ہوں کہ آپ میں سے جو بھی کاؤنسلرز ہیں، ٹھیک ہے آپ کا تعلق پاکستان سے یا کشمیر سے ہے، لیکن آپ لوگ برطانوی شہری ہیں، تو یہ جو تجویز آپ نے دی ہے کہ حکومت آزاد جموں و کشمیر آپ کو ایک اسٹریٹجی ڈاکیومنٹ دے، تو یہ نامناسب ہوگا، کیونکہ جو ہے آپ سب لوگ پڑھے لکھے ہیں، اور جو ہے وہ ایک بہت ترقی یافتہ جمہوری ملک میں رہتے ہیں، تو میرا خیال ہے کہ ہمارے آپ کے ساتھ رابطے رہنے چاہیے، لیکن جو اسٹریٹجی ہے اور جو معلومات آپ کو چاہیے، جس قسم کا تعاون آپ کو چاہیے، اس کے لیے آپ حاضر ہیں، لیکن ہمیں اپنا اسٹریٹجی ڈاکیومنٹ جو ہے وہ اپنے لیے تو ہو سکتا ہے، آزاد کشمیر کی حکومت کے لیے یا جموں و کشمیر کے لوگوں کے لیے، لیکن اسے ہمیں کاؤنسلرز کے اوپر مسلط نہیں کرنا چاہیے، کیونکہ کاؤنسلرز کے بھی مختلف قسم کے خیالات و نظریات ہیں۔ ایک صاحب نے شاید یہ کہا کہ ہم ہیڈ لیس چکن کی طرح پھر رہے ہیں، تو ایسی بات نہیں ہے، یعنی آپ کو پتہ ہے کہ، اور میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ کشمیر کے حوالے سے یہ بات نہیں کہنی چاہیے تھی، بیکاز heads of Kashmiris are being chopped off every day by the occupation forces. تو یہ استعارہ مجھے کچھ اچھا نہیں لگا، لیکن یہ ہے کہ ان کا कहना ये था, वो नेक नियति से ये कह रहे थे कि हम एक दूसरे के साथ ताउन करें और कोई मुश्तरका लाया अमल इख्तियार करें। तो मैं ये कहूँगा कि हम लोगों को, आपको मैं ये भी, यहाँ के लोगों को भी हौसला दे रहा हूँ, आपको भी हौसला दे रहा हूँ कि गुज़श्ता बरस के बाद जहाँ एक तरफ हिंदुस्तान ने मज़ालिम की इंतहा कर दी है, वहाँ आपको बैनुल-अक़वामी बरादरी की हिमायत भी मिली है, जिसमें मीडिया शामिल है, जिसमें पार्लियामेंट्स शामिल हैं, आपकी पार्लियामेंट शामिल है, आपकी काउंसिल्स शामिल हैं, यूरोपियन पार्लियामेंट शामिल है, यूएस कांग्रेस है। आपके लिए कितने दरवाजे खुले हैं। कभी न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स या वॉल स्ट्रीट जर्नल या टाइम्स ऑफ लंदन या जो गार्डियन है, वो कश्मीरियों को और पाकिस्तानियों को कुछ स्पेस दिया करते थे अगस्त 5 से पहले, तो अब तो दी है उन्होंने स्पेस, तो उसे इस्तेमाल कीजिए। ये ठीक है कि कोविड-19 की वजह से कश्मीर के ऊपर वो तवज्जो नहीं है, लेकिन वो दरवाजे बंद नहीं हुए और कश्मीर में जुल्म सितम ख़त्म नहीं हुआ। तो आपकी आवाज़ों की पजीराई होगी अगर आप जो है उनके साथ राब्ते करेंगे। तो मेरा मतलब है कि सिर्फ हम जो है अपनी नाकामियाँ सरेआम न गिने, बल्कि वो कामयाबियाँ भी गिने और वो नए मौक़े जो पैदा हुए हैं उनका भी जिक्र करें, ताकि लोगों के हौसले बढ़ें। यानी ये कि नाकामी का बयानिया ना फैलाया जाए, बल्कि ये देखा जाए कि कहाँ कहाँ हम पेशकदमी कर रहे हैं और कहाँ कहाँ हमें कामयाबी हो रही है। आपको पता है कि गुज़श्ता बरस जो है हिंदुस्तान की शोहरत और उसके जो इमेज है उसको बहुत ही नुकसान पहुँचा है। ये भी अपनी जगह पे एक हकीकत है। उनका ये ख्याल था कि जी यूएस कांग्रेस में उनके खिलाफ कोई आवाज़ ही नहीं उठा सकता, या वो समझते थे कि ये जो यूरोपियन यूनियन है तजारती मुआहिदों की वजह से वो बेज़बान ग़ुलाम बन चुकी है। लेकिन ऐसा नहीं हुआ, लोगों ने आवाज़ उठाई है कश्मीर के हक़ में। एक और सवाल सहीर साहब ने मुझे पूछा कि लोग कहते हैं कश्मीर बनेगा पाकिस्तान, तो ये जो मकबूजा कश्मीर में भी और आज़ाद कश्मीर में बहुत से लोगों की जमहूरी ख्वाहिश है कि कश्मीर बनेगा पाकिस्तान, तो इसे दबाया नहीं जा सकता। जैसे आप बरतानिया में जमहूरी जगह पे रहते हैं, तो वहाँ ये है कि स्कॉटलैंड से कोई आवाज़ उठती है तो आप उसे दबाने की कोशिश नहीं करते। या लोग कहते थे कि जनाब ब्रेक्सिट होना चाहिए या नहीं होना चाहिए, उसके ऊपर आपने एक रेफरेंडम करवा दिया। तो ये भी जहाँ तक पाकिस्तान की पोजीशन का ताल्लुक है कि ये भी एक रेफरेंडम से तय होना है। ये पाकिस्तान के कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में आर्टिकल 257 में लिखा हुआ है कि जब ये रेफरेंडम हो जाएगा, ये रायशुमारी हो जाएगी, तो हम तय करेंगे कि किस तरीके से पाकिस्तान के और कश्मीर के ताल्लुकात को इस्तवार किया जाए। जहाँ तक उन्होंने ये कहा है कि वो जो जमातें खुद मुख्तार हैं उनको क्यों नहीं मौका दिया जा रहा, तो वो वहाँ कोई आइन का हिस्सा है, जो आइन लिखा गया है उसका हिस्सा है। लेकिन ये मैं आपको बता दूं कि जो खुद मुख्तार कश्मीर की हिमायत करते हैं, पाकिस्तान की तरफ या आज़ाद कश्मीर में उनके साथ बेहतर सलूक किया जा रहा है। वहाँ मकबूजा जम्मू कश्मीर में ये है कि वो जो यासीन मलिक साहब जो JKLF के चेयरमैन हैं, वो तिहाड़ जेल में हैं, उनको पूरी बदतरीन हालत में रखा गया है, उनकी जमात को बैन कर दिया गया है। इधर JKLF जो है वो बैन नहीं है, और वो यासीन मलिक साहब वाली, अमानुल्लाह साहब वाली जो है, और उनको हर किस्म की आज़ादी मुयस्सर है। जो एक और सवाल मुझसे पूछा गया वो ये है, और ये कि अगर आपने अपना बयानिया बनाना ही है तो आप सेल्फ डिटर्मिनेशन की बात करते रहें, इसके ऊपर सबका इत्तेफाक है। एक ये है कि ये मेरा ख्याल है मैंने सवालात के जवाब दे दिए हैं। एक राशिद चौधरी साहब ने पूछा कि 14वीं अमेंडमेंट है, उसके सिलसिले में गैर रस्मी तौर पर हुकूमत आज़ाद कश्मीर और हुकूमत पाकिस्तान के कुछ मुज़ाकरात हुए हैं, लेकिन उन्होंने कोई ऐसी ठोस शक्ल इख्तियार नहीं की। लेकिन ये बात दुरुस्त नहीं है कि जिस किस्म के इक़दामात हिंदुस्तान ने वहाँ किए हैं अगस्त 5 को लास्ट ईयर, उसी किस्म के इक़दामात इस तरफ किए जा रहे हैं, ये बात दुरुस्त नहीं है। लेकिन ये है कि इसके ऊपर बातचीत चल रही है। और मोहम्मद इदरीस साहब ने जो है आखिर में ये कहा कि हमें, ये कौन से थे जी, अच्छा, मैं माफ़ी चाहता हूँ कि 14th अमेंडमेंट के बारे में काशिफ साहब ने सवाल पूछा था, राशिद साहब ने नहीं पूछा था, तो मैंने गलत नाम लिखा हुआ था, तो ये हमाद साहब ने मुझे बताया, तो मैं उसे दुरुस्त करना चाहता हूँ। जो आखिरी जो है मोहम्मद इदरीस साहब ने शायद मुझे ये तजवीज़ दी थी कि यहाँ इस्लामाबाद में जो हमारे हाई कमिश्नर्स और एम्बेसडर्स हैं उनसे बातचीत करनी चाहिए। तो मैं आपको सिर्फ ये यकीन दिलाना चाहता हूँ कि मैं जो सलामती काउंसिल के परमानेंट मेंबर्स हैं उनके सफ़ीरों से यहाँ बातचीत करता रहता हूँ और हम ये कोशिश करते रहेंगे। आखिरी अल्फाज मेरे, फ़हीम कियानी साहब बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, उज़्मा रसूल आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, ऑल द काउंसलर्स थैंक यू सो मच। और मैं समझता हूँ कि अभी भी ये मूवमेंट जब उठेगी, जैसे इस मूवमेंट को हम उसी पिच पे ले जाना चाहते हैं जिस पिच पे एंटी अपार्थाइड मूवमेंट थी या एंटी वॉर मूवमेंट इन वियतनाम थी, तो उस पिच पे पहुंचाने के लिए मैं समझता हूं कि जो स्प्रिंग बोर्ड है या जो प्लेटफॉर्म है, इनेबलिंग प्लेटफॉर्म, वो बरतानिया से आएगा। तो बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया जी।
Thank you, Your Excellency. You've been excellent. You've engaged everyone in England, in Britain, consistently. You've visited when you can. So thank you so much for joining us today. I think one thing I found with this conference, everyone wants a clear strategy. So what we are planning to do is actually follow-up meetings, actually create a network of councillors who can talk to His Excellency, for example, who can network together, who can really make sure that we've got an organised effort. I think that's what's missing, organisation. So that is something we will work on. I can read and write Urdu, but I can't accent, so I get embarrassed. But I just want to say to His Excellency, Bahut Shukriya Aapka for joining us today. It's been an honour to have a diplomat who's represented us so well. So Bahut Shukriya Aapko. I can read and write Urdu, but I really get embarrassed to my accent speaking. So thank you so much, Your Excellency, for taking the time out for us. I will go on to Fahim Kiani.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Oh, actually, I think the President wants to speak.
I'll meet you.
President, yeah.
Yes. Just अल्ताफ भट्ट साहब का मैं शुक्रिया अदा करना चाहता हूँ। वो हमेशा जो है बहुत फयाजाना अंदाज में मेरी कोशिशों को सराहते हैं और दूसरे मैं समझता हूँ कि उन्होंने गुज़श्ता बरस जो है मैंने उनको देखा है, बराह रास्त मुशाहिदा किया है, जितनी मेहनत और खलूस के साथ मसला कश्मीर को उजागर करने की कोशिश की है, उसके ऊपर मैं उनको खराज तहसीन पेश करना चाहता हूँ। और मैं फ़हीम कियानी साहब को भी इस सिलसिले में उनकी तारीफ़ करना चाहता हूँ कि उन्होंने उनको व्हाट्सएप को एक इंटरनेशनल प्लेटफॉर्म दिया है। ये कश्मीर की आवाज़ है और जिस दर्द के साथ वो बात कर सकते हैं उस दर्द से कोई और बात नहीं कर सकता। उनका ज़ाती मुशाहिदा है, ज़ाती कुर्बानी है, उनके ख़ानदान ने बड़ी कुर्बानियाँ दी हुई हैं। तो जब भी कहीं वो साथ हमारे शरीक होते हैं तो मुझे बहुत खुशी होती है, हौसला बढ़ता है और उसके बाद मुझे ये यकीन हो जाता है कि हम अपने सफ़ों में इत्तेहाद पैदा करके एक दिन ज़रूर कामयाबी हासिल करेंगे इंशाअल्लाह।
थैंक यू वेरी मच प्रेसिडेंट साहब, उज़्मा रसूल साहबा, भट्ट साहब और तमाम काउंसलर्स। मैं भी उर्दू में बात कर रहा हूँ क्योंकि कुछ काउंसलर्स नज़र आ रहे हैं। तो मेरी एक सजेशन ये होगी कि बहुत सारी चीज़ लूटन के काउंसलर असलम खान साहब हैं, जवेरिया हुसैन साहिबा हैं, कहतीक-ए-काशमीर चौधरी साहब, तो अगर ये काउंसिल के अंदर एक उस दिन 5 अगस्त को अगर सारे काउंसलर इकट्ठे होकर कोई प्ले कार्ड उठा के काउंसिल के बाहर एक सोलिडारिटी शो की जाए लुटन काउंसिल के अंदर। इसी तरह कैन सी काउंसलर मुश्ताक अहमद फ्रॉम रेड ब्रिज, अगर वहाँ पे कोई एक्टिविटी 5 अगस्त को हो जाए। इसी तरह काउंसलर मोहम्मद सगीर साहब फ्रॉम नॉटिंघम, आई कैन सी अगर एक एक्टिविटी नॉटिंघम के अंदर उस दिन छोटी एक्टिविटी हो जाए, चाहे 10, 15, 20 काउंसलर खड़े होकर कम्युनिटी, ताकि अक्रॉस द कंट्री एक्टिविटी 5 अगस्त को कोई ना कोई होनी चाहिए। इसी तरह आई कैन सी काउंसलर जमीला आजाद साहिबा फ्रॉम ऑक्सफोर्ड, कोई एक्टिविटी वहाँ पर भी हो जाए काउंसिल के अंदर। इसी तरह महबूब भट्टी साहब वेरी सीनियर काउंसलर, और हाई वैकम के अंदर भी कोई ना कोई उस दिन हम चाह रहे हैं कि अक्रॉस द कंट्री कोई ना कोई एक्टिविटी आप खुद डिसाइड करें कि व्हाट काइंड ऑफ एक्टिविटी यू शुड डू इन योर काउंसिल ऑन 5 अगस्त, ताकि जिस तरह मोमेंटम हमारा 5 अगस्त के बाद कायम हुआ उस दिन। ठीक है कि आप डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन में, बड़े डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन में सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग नहीं होती और बहुत सारे काउंसलर अवॉइड करते हैं बड़े डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन के अंदर जाने के लिए, क्योंकि बाद में काउंसिल्स उनसे पूछती हैं। लेकिन आप खुद विद इन काउंसिल कोई चीज़ डिसाइड करें अगर आप नेचर डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन में शरीक नहीं कर सकते आउटसाइड योर काउंसिल सम काइंड ऑफ, तो अगर इसके हवाले से अगर कोई सजेशन महबूब भट्टी साहब देना चाहिए या इस तरह असलम साहब या काउंसलर आसिफ खान, सबके नाम नहीं मेंशन कर सकता लेकिन चले।
फ़हीम साहब मैं एक सजेशन देना चाहता था। आप जानते हैं कि मुख्तलिफ जो हमारे शहर हैं वहाँ पे कोविड की सेकंड पीक का अमकान भी है या है, वहाँ पे गाइडलाइंस लोगों को प्रिवेंट करती हैं कि वो गैदरिंग वगैरह ना करें। तो मैं सोचता हूँ कि परहैप्स जूम टेक्नोलॉजी के ज़रिए जो आप अपने कॉलीग्स को, अपने एमपीज़ को और बाकी मेंबर ऑफ सोसाइटीज़ को आप इनवाइट कर सकते हैं। जिस तरह मतलब हमारा काम है कि इस मसले को उजागर करना और मीडिया तक पहुँचाना, उसमें अपनी मीडिया तक मतलब बात हम कम्युनिकेट कर सकते हैं। सो दिस डिफरेंट वेज ऑफ गेटिंग द मैसेज अक्रॉस। तो आई थिंक ये फ्रॉम काउंसिल टू काउंसिल वेरिएशन है, हर एरिया इस लॉकडाउन की पोजीशन में नहीं है, तो परहैप्स प्लेसेस लाइक लूटन शायद वो काम कर सकते हैं।
महबूब भट्टी साहब, अगर इफ यू वांट टू सजेस्ट पर्टिकुलर
Thank you. Can I first of all thank you again कि आपने बहुत अच्छी और बड़ी अच्छी मीटिंग रही है, and thank you for President joining us. मैं सिर्फ ये प्रपोजल देना चाहता हूँ कि I think हमारी मीटिंग जो थी रोब के साथ, क्योंकि I know Rob personally और थी due in January, but because of this problem of COVID-19 we couldn't. मुझे यकीन है कि Rob will give us time because I know him personally in October, and I hope that we can discuss Kashmir with him because I think he understands, because he's been to my house. He knows about quite a bit on Kashmir issue and see if we can move any forward. पर मैं ये जरूर गुजारिश करूँगा सब जो काउंसलर हैं, हमने अभी रिसेंटली बहुत से काउंसलरों ने कहा जी उन्होंने मोशन पास किया अपने काउंसिल में. I think we could continue doing that. जो आप कह रहे हैं ये बड़ी अच्छी बात है, पर काउंसिल से एक मोशन पास होना उसकी बड़ी वैल्यू है. अगर आप इंडियन हाई कमीशन को और पाकिस्तान मुख्तलिफ यूनाइटेड नेशन सबको भेजते हैं जी कि दिस इज व्हाट द पीपल डेमोक्रेटिक कंट्री और डेमोक्रेटिक पीपल इलेक्टेड डन दिस.
व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू से महबूब भट्टी साहब, हर काउंसिल के लिए मोशन पास करना बड़ा मुश्किल है. 5 अगस्त हम चाहते हैं कि 5 अगस्त को फर्ज करें कि लेबर काउंसलर्स हैं, एजेंट काउंसलर, एक वो लेटर ड्राफ्ट करके फॉरेन सेक्रेटरी को एक लेटर लिखते हैं, अपने लीडर ऑफ द हाउस को लिखें, कोई ना कोई एक्टिविटी 5 अगस्त को हर काउंसिल अपने सतह के ऊपर जनरेट करे. जैसे जाके कंजर्वेटिव पार्टीज के काउंसलर हाई वैकम में कलेक्टिव लेटर लिख दे, some kind of any activity on Twitter, whatever they can do in their capacity, so they should do.
Rest assured कि 5 अगस्त को we will do something in high वैकम इंशाल्लाह. हमारे MP जो हैं आपको पता है कि बड़ी सपोर्ट में very open, and I think I met him yesterday. I think we will do something on 5th of August. I think I'll discuss with Steve and see what we can do.
Thank you.
Can I just ask to draw up a petition which all councillors can sign and send it to our Home Secretary and local government, and by 5th of August?
I think so. Councillor Javerio, Hussain Saiba, and Councillor Uzma Rasool, and a couple of councillors, you can on board Mahbub, but then they can draft a petition, then we can ask every councillor across the country to sign that petition.
What I suggest is Councillor Javerio, if we can exchange contact details, I'll ask for him. And I'm wondering if you could help me with building a network of councillors together.
We can do that, yeah.
Yeah, so I think because I think you're very spot on about organisation of having a consistent strategy. So I think that's something that'd be good if we get you on board and we work with a proper network nationwide. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And with regards to an activity on the 5th of August itself, as Councillor Aston has stated clearly with regards to Luton, I mean, obviously we can't, because this is single measures and also COVID situation in Luton. Obviously, we can't have any physical events, as it were. But by all means, technology is important here. So perhaps, Zoom calls. Perhaps if councils are able to pass motions, fantastic. If not, perhaps Zoom calls would be good, or even Facebook calls. I mean, everybody seems to be on Facebook these days, organising events and so on. So that would be really useful. But by yeah, happy to help in whatever way possible as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I?
Yeah, sure.
Can I just make it one point? I think it's very good. One thing I think, even if, at least if the councils can make some effort to see their own member of parliament, that will at least put some sort of pressure on people. Because
that's a good idea.
For example, my member of parliament, Steve, is very sort of a close friend, because he's only there because of me, because I withdraw my name. But he's a very good friend, and he's done a lot of work on Kashmir. But I would say that I can meet 4 or 5, or I can meet 10 member of parliament to on the phone or on somewhere, because it's first was yesterday we got together to discuss, because it's been so difficult. I don't think we'll be able to do much in the council. We do our meeting on Zoom, and so really it's difficult to get the motion passed in that quickly. But I must say, in October, we're hoping in November we can do something. But 5th of August is so close. I would say the best thing is for the councillors, at least raise it with the member of parliament. At least it will be something that we can all say we've done something on 5th of August.
With your permission, Chair, I think it's important that you have a communication strategy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And fundamentally is whether you are holding a petition or a motion, you need to make sure that you contact your local press and national press with a press release, especially to mark the anniversary on the 5th of August. It's important that we keep this absolutely live. Second step, I think it's important that we utilise social media much more effectively and using those communication skills. So whether it's a video or making an infographic that can go both on Twitter and go on to Facebook. We face many problems and many obstacles, and one of the fundamental problems is there is an obstacle of Islamophobia. So any cause which is linked to Muslims or Islam, negativity constantly arises. And it's really key that as a community that we begin to raise this much wider than Islam and Muslims. Obviously it is linked to us, but it's more linked to it's absolutely fundamental. It's how you message and communicate these things. So it is about human rights, it is about humanity, and it is about those particular issues. If it was affected a non-Muslim, how would you react? And how would you react to that? And it's that type of empathy in that communication that you've got to do. And I've got to say, congratulations, Councillor Bhatti. I think your role is fundamental with a Conservative government and Conservative. And we're talking here, irrespective of political party, as my brother. And it's important. To play such an important role in that. I've actually spoken to Keir Starmer and wrote him a private and a public letter about his change. And I lobbied with him, I campaigned for him, I was one of his great supporters, but I absolutely made clear to him that his points and his views on Kashmir that he put out were wrong, and told him, and that the others joined in and so on.
I'm grateful.
I will absolutely, the Kashmir is an issue irrespective of which political party.
I agree.
Yeah, I think the Labour Party need to do all the councillors. It shouldn't be a political sort of point scoring, but I think we should be working united. Absolutely. I think the Labour Party have done a great job. Now he's trying to do a bit of a U-turn. I think we need your support to put him in his place and say, well, look, move on forward, don't go backward.
What I would also suggest, from what I picked up during the general election, one thing I noticed was, because it seemed that only Labour put through a motion, we had the BJP utilising that in the UK. So Manoj Ladwa and all the BJP associates in the UK utilising that to make it a left versus right or Labour versus Tory. And I think that's why I really, this is why I'm so happy to have you here, Councillor Bhatti, because we need a cross-party, because we do see that there are Conservatives who support Kashmir, like the lovely Steve Baker, the lovely Paul Bristow, they've been amazing. But what we do need is, I think, a bit more. I know there's lots of our Kashmiris and Pakistanis in the Conservative Party, but there doesn't seem to be like a proper I don't see more of a public effort, I guess. So maybe we could have more of the Conservative Party publicly coming out with Labour together, like a cross-party thing. That way tomorrow, when there's an election, we don't have someone like the BJP or someone like Manoj Ladwa writing articles in the Times against our motions, or saying, you know, this is a left-wing thing, this is a Marxist. It's not a